Do you want a trip to the Caribbean? If so, Mommy and I are going, and you're staying behind, got it? If not, we're getting a divorce. Andrew used the threat of divorce to take the Caribbean trip from me. His mom looked at me with a smug expression, clearly enjoying the moment. I couldn't just let this go. I was planning my revenge on this mother-son duo. My name is Leland. I'm 32 years old, and I'm just an ordinary working mom at a company. Andrew and I have been married for 2 years. I met him through a mutual acquaintance, and he was 2 years older than me. I never really liked dating during college, and I only had a few relationships after I started working, none of which led to marriage. When I turned 30, my parents got worried and started looking for potential matches for me. Andrew seemed calm and caring, and since I value my family, I was drawn to how he cared for his parents. I thought maybe we could make it work, so I decided to marry him. Everything went smoothly, and we became husband and wife. It was a happy time. About 6 months into our marriage, I got a lot of calls from Andrew. I quickly called him back, and with a tired voice, he told me, "Please stay calm. Something happened to my dad. He collapsed at home and was taken to the hospital." I couldn't believe it. I never expected to hear about my father-in-law's death so suddenly. He was so healthy. Everyone was shocked. Afterward, Andrew became very focused on caring for his mother. He would visit her every day, sometimes having dinner or going shopping with her. Once, he even took special leave to go on a trip with her. It wasn't that he neglected me, but whenever our plans conflicted, he always chose her. "Sorry, Leland. Mom just called and wants me to come over, but we were going to see a movie today. She really wants to go shopping," he would say. I was upset. "We had planned this a week ago. Can't you go to the movie alone?" he asked. I reluctantly agreed, but inside, I was angry. Why was I being blamed? Isn't Matilda the one being demanding? Even though Andrew was always putting his mom first, I thought maybe this was just how marriage was. My way of coping was solving crossword puzzles. They were a good distraction, and sometimes I even won gift cards or food prizes when Andrew would ditch me for his mom. One day, I won a pair of tickets to the Caribbean. It was the biggest prize I'd ever won, and I double-checked my win several times out of excitement. The tickets required me to specify who would be traveling before contacting the airline. The first person who came to mind was Andrew, but I wasn't sure. Andrew often traveled with his mom, Matilda, and if I suggested going together, I had a feeling she might want to come along. After thinking it over, I decided to give the trip to my parents. On my way home, I stopped by their house to tell them the good news. "Mom, guess what? I won tickets to the Caribbean." "Oh my, that's amazing. You're going with Andrew, right? Have fun," she said. "Not exactly. I thought I'd give the tickets to you and Dad." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Absolutely. Andrew travels enough. I want you two to enjoy it," I replied. "Thank you, Leland. We'll definitely take you up on that." Mom grinned with excitement, but Dad didn't seem as excited. He looked troubled. "Well, I've got work. Can't you take some time off?" he asked. "This time of year is really busy for our company. It's not a great time for me to be away," he said. "Oh, that's too bad," I replied. Then Dad suggested, "Why not go with Olivia? It was originally your prize, right? Go enjoy some quality time with her." Mom chimed in, "That sounds wonderful." I felt thrilled and excited about the idea. The next day, I applied for time off from work, and it was quickly approved. I contacted the airline to let them know that my parents would be using the tickets instead. On my way home from work, I stopped by a bookstore and bought a guidebook for the Caribbean. It had been a long time since Mom and I went on a trip together, and I was honestly really happy about it. But when I got home, something unexpected was waiting for me. When I got home, I noticed the lights were on, so I naturally thought Andrew was home, but instead of his shoes by the door, there were a familiar pair of women's shoes. As I wondered what was going on, the living room door opened, and there stood Matilda. "Lillian, what time do you think it is?" she said. "Oh, Matilda, I didn't realize you were here," I replied. "It's not just about being here, it's about coming home this late. What have you been doing? Andrew will be back any minute now," she scolded. "I'm sorry, I'll get dinner ready right away," I said. "It's not just that," she snapped. "Making the bed is basic common sense for a daughter-in-law. Do you even take your role seriously?" "I'm sorry things have gotten this way," I said, trying to calm the situation. "You should be more dedicated to your home since you're still working." Matilda huffed and walked back to the living room. Since she lived nearby and Andrew had given her a key, she often showed up without notice. She clearly had outdated beliefs about what a daughter-in-law's role should be, and she didn't approve of me working full-time. She would constantly criticize me, making it hard to get along with her. As I started putting my things down and preparing dinner, Matilda suddenly shrieked, "Wait, what's this? Leland, are you planning to go to the Caribbean?" She had gone through my bag and found the new guidebook I had bought. "Matilda, why are you going through my things?" I asked, frustrated. "That's not the point. What's this about going to the Caribbean?" she demanded. "I won the trip in a sweepstakes. I was planning to give it to Mom," I explained. "I haven't heard anything about this. Why would I need to know?" she retorted. Before I could respond, Andrew walked in. Matilda immediately rushed to him and pointed at me, accusing me. "Andrew, listen to this. Leland's been so inconsiderate," she said. "What happened, Mom? Did Leland do something?" Andrew asked, confused. "You believe she would win a Caribbean trip and plan to give it to Olivia without even consulting me?" Matilda said, looking shocked. "What Caribbean trip? This is news to me too," Andrew added, glaring at me. "What's going on?" "It's simple. I won the trip and wanted to give it to my parents, but since Dad can't go, I thought you could go with Olivia," I explained. "So, you're going with Olivia instead of me?" he asked, sounding frustrated. "Yeah, what's the big deal? You always travel with Matilda," I said. "It's not the same. Mom and I only go on domestic trips. We haven't been abroad in years," Andrew said. "How can you decide this without asking me? It's my prize." "Why should I ask you? I won the trip," I replied. Andrew slammed the table, cutting me off. "You're getting too bold for a daughter-in-law. Me and Mommy are going. You'll stay home." I couldn't hide my disgust at how he referred to her as Mommy. "Hold on, this trip is for me, not you. If you're not happy, let's just get a divorce," Andrew said. Divorce? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was threatening divorce over something like this. I was furious. "I won this trip fair and square. I've already decided to give it to my mom. Just pick up on the vibes for once. Mommy wants to go." "Where does it end with you always prioritizing Matilda? You never think about how I feel," I shot back. "I don't care how you feel. This trip is for me and Mommy. Stay home and be good," Andrew said coldly. I felt my feelings for him rapidly fading. It was clear that I was less important to him than Matilda. I couldn't keep dealing with this ridiculous mother-son duo. I calmly said to Andrew, "Fine, do as you wish and enjoy your trip." "You should have listened from the start," he snapped. "Suit yourself, always talking back." The kind Andrew I knew was gone, and in his place was someone I didn't recognize. Meanwhile, Matilda stood there, smirking triumphantly. I decided that I couldn't stay in this house while they went on their trip. I resolved to let Andrew and Matilda go on the trip together. The next day, I contacted the airline to let them know about the change in travelers, Andrew and his mother. However, when I contacted the airline, the operator replied in a concerned tone, "I'm sorry, but we cannot change the registered participants once they've been confirmed." "Is that so?" I asked. "Yes. Furthermore, this airline ticket requires the actual winner to travel with the person. If your husband and mother-in-law are going, the ticket will be invalid," the operator explained. "So if I don't go, the ticket has no value?" I asked. "That's correct. Please review the documents we sent you for this specific condition," the operator replied. When I looked at the documents I had received, it clearly stated that only the winner could use the ticket, and it couldn't be transferred. I explained the situation to the operator and decided to decline the trip. I didn't want to tell Andrew or Matilda, so I planned to let them travel at their own expense. That night, when I got home from work, I casually mentioned the trip to Andrew. "Andrew, about the Caribbean trip," I said. "Yeah, you contacted the airline, right? Saying that Mommy and I will go?" he replied. "I did call. Here are the winning documents and the tickets. I just need the tickets," I said. Andrew barely glanced at the documents. "I won't read the documents. There are detailed instructions in those documents. Considering it's an international trip, I think it would be wise to read them," I advised. "We don't need to. Mommy and I know what we're doing. We're efficient. Unlike you," he said. "Fine, whatever. I'll leave them here just in case," I said, knowing he wouldn't bother reading them. As expected, Andrew didn't look at the documents and went on with his day. When the day of the trip arrived, I confirmed that Andrew had left, packed my bags, and headed to my parents' house. While I was unpacking, I got the call from Andrew that I had been expecting. As soon as I picked up, he started shouting, "Hey, What's the meaning of this? They said this ticket can't be used. That's right. If the winner doesn't go, the ticket is invalid, I explained. What? Why didn't you tell me something so important earlier? He yelled. I did tell you, remember? I even suggested you read the instructions, I replied calmly. You mean it was written in those documents you gave me? He asked, realizing his mistake. Exactly, it's your fault for not reading them, I said. This is absurd, so how are we supposed to get to the Caribbean? Andrew asked, sounding panicked. The operator did mention that if the winner doesn't go, you'd have to pay the full price for the tickets, I said. Clearly not expecting this, Andrew sounded even more stressed. I could hear Matilda's voice in the background, both of them in distress. Andrew, what did Lillian say? Matilda asked. Mommy, if Lillian doesn't have to pay for the trip, Andrew muttered. Andrew kept calling me after I hung up, but I didn't want to deal with it. A few minutes later, he called again. Hello, what is it now? I'm busy, I said coldly. It's not what you think. I tried to buy the tickets, but the credit card isn't working, he said. I don't know anything about your card, I replied. It's not mine, it's your card, he said. Wait, are you saying you used my card without my permission? I asked, shocked. You need to fix it now, he demanded. When I checked my wallet this morning, I realized my card was missing. I had a feeling it was him, so I immediately froze the card. I knew he'd taken it. You stole it, didn't you? I said, furious. I was planning to shop with that card abroad. You always mess things up, you jerk. He showed no remorse. He didn't care about the trip or stealing my card. All he cared about was himself. Are you kidding me? He shouted. I was going to use it for shopping. I couldn't take it anymore. Who are you calling a jerk? After mocking others all the time, you should just go to hell, I snapped. You're so obsessed with your mommy. If you love her so much, why don't you two just stay together? He was furious. What are you talking about? Who do you think you're talking to? Stop disrespecting me like that. Honestly, it's creepy how you always call for mommy. You're just a mama's boy, I said. There's no value in us being married. Calm down, he said, but I wasn't having it. If you keep this up, we'll divorce. Fine by me. I was thinking the same thing. I've left the house, and I don't plan on coming back. Enjoy your trip with your beloved mommy. Hope you both drown in the Caribbean, I shouted before hanging up. Damn mama's boy. In a rage, I blocked both Andrew and his mother. Afterward, I went to a law firm that my father recommended and started the divorce process. While checking our savings for the asset division, I found that our joint account had been emptied. There were several withdrawals, all lining up with the time when Andrew went on his trip with his mother. It was clear he had used our savings for the trip. On top of that, he'd used my credit card without permission. I demanded compensation for what he had done. He ended up in debt and got chased by creditors. Meanwhile, his relationship with his mother began to sour. They argued every time they saw each other. It was ironic, considering how close they used to be. As for me, I decided to stay with my parents for a while. I wanted to make up for the time I had spent worrying them. I decided to live with them and take care of them. Honestly, I was done with marriage. What truly mattered to me now was a caring family. The whole divorce experience made me realize that.
The evening air was tense, a prelude to the storm brewing in our living room. What do you mean she's moving in tomorrow? I asked Greg, my voice barely containing the shock and anger. Greg didn't even flinch. It's decided, Elise. Mom's coming to live with us. It makes sense, especially now. How can you make such a decision alone? I countered, feeling the walls of our home closing in on me. What about our plans, the rooms? He had that all-knowing look, the one that always set me on edge. We'll convert your home office. It's the only logical solution. My office? Greg, that's my space, my sanctuary. You don't really need it, he said dismissively. Besides, I pay the rent here, $3,000 a month. That gives me a say in how we use the space. I was stunned. This house, the one my parents had passed down to me, now felt alien, controlled by Greg's financial hold over it. But this is my family home, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Greg's voice was cold, devoid of the warmth I once fell in love with. Your family home or not, I'm the one footing the bills now. Get your stuff cleared out by tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. The realization that our marriage was a facade, built on the shaky grounds of financial power and silent submission, hit me hard. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my office being emptied. Marion, Greg's mother, arrived with her suitcases, an unwelcome guest in my own home. In the days that followed, the tension escalated. Marion's presence was overbearing. She rearranged the kitchen, criticized my cooking, and worst of all, she had this way of subtly belittling me in front of my daughter, Mia. I felt like a stranger, tiptoeing around my own life. Greg became more distant. His conversations were curt, his nights late. Our home, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, now echoed with the sounds of unspoken resentments and forced politeness. One evening, I overheard Greg and Marion discussing finances. "Elise doesn't contribute much anyway," Marion scoffed. "She should be grateful we're letting her stay." I felt a surge of anger. This was my family home, a place of cherished memories, now being reduced to financial transactions and power plays. The next morning, I confronted Greg. "I want to talk about the rent," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "This was my family's home. I never agreed to pay rent." Greg's response was a mix of arrogance and indifference. "Well, things change, Elise. I'm paying the bills, so technically it's more my house than yours now." That was the moment I knew. Our marriage, a delicate balance of love and compromise, had crumbled under the weight of control and disrespect. I called my father, Nolan, my voice shaking. "Dad, I need your help. It's about Greg." As I hung up, I realized that this was just the beginning. I wasn't going to let Greg and Marion turn my life into their dominion. They might have underestimated me, thinking I'd crumble under their control. But they were wrong. I was my father's daughter, and I knew a thing or two about standing my ground. Sitting in the empty room that used to be my office, I couldn't help but reminisce about the early days with Greg. We were like two pieces of a puzzle, fitting perfectly with our differences. But now, those differences were tearing us apart. I remembered our first date, how Greg's laughter had echoed in the autumn air, how he had looked at me as if I was the only person in the world. It was hard to reconcile that memory with the man who had just usurped my family home. My phone buzzed, pulling me back from the past. It was a text from my father, Nolan. "I'll take care of it. Meet me at the shop tomorrow." Nolan's auto repair shop had been a staple of my childhood. It was more than a business. It was a testament to his hard work and dedication. That shop, much like our family home, held memories of a life once filled with warmth and togetherness. The next day, I walked into the familiar scent of oil and metal. Dad was under a car, his hands expertly moving as he worked. "Dad," I called out. He slid out, wiping his hands. "Elise, let's talk in the office." The office was a small room filled with trophies from car shows and framed photos of our family. It was a capsule of happier times. "I can't believe Greg is doing this," Dad said, his eyes reflecting a mix of anger and concern. I sighed. "I know, Dad. I think it's time for some payback." Dad nodded, a determined look crossing his face. "What do you have in mind?" "I want Greg and Marion out of the house, but I want to do it legally, make them feel the pinch of their actions." Dad leaned back in his chair, pondering. "We can draw up a rental agreement, hike up the rent, make it impossible for them to stay." I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This was the first step in reclaiming my life, but it also meant declaring war on Greg and Marion. "Let's do it," I said, the resolve in my voice surprising even me. Over the next few days, Dad and I worked on the rental agreement. It was a meticulous and strategic plan, designed to legally corner Greg and Marion. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction imagining their faces when they'd see the new terms. Meanwhile, back at the house, Marion's true colors began to show more vividly. She complained about everything, from the way I dressed Mia to the brand of coffee I bought. Her words were like needles, subtle but piercing. One evening, I overheard her on the phone. "Yes, I've finally got Elise under my thumb. This house will be ours soon." Fury and disbelief coursed through me. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? But her words also steeled my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Mia from this toxic environment. The day came to present the rental agreement to Greg and Marion. I walked into the living room, the document in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. "Greg, we need to talk about the house," I said, my voice steady. He looked up, surprised. "What about it?" I handed him the document. "It's the new rental agreement. You need to read it." As Greg's eyes scanned the pages, I saw a range of emotions flicker across his face. Confusion, disbelief, and finally anger. This is absurd. The rent's been raised tenfold. Yes, I said, meeting his gaze. It's the market rate for this property. If you can't afford it, you'll have to find somewhere else to live. Greg's face turned red, his anger palpable. You can't do this to us. I can, and I am, I replied, feeling a sense of empowerment I hadn't felt in years. This is my family home, Greg. You've forgotten that, but I haven't. The days following the presentation of the rental agreement were a blend of silent battles and open confrontations. Marion's true nature, once hidden under a veil of polite intrusion, now emerged in full force. One evening, I was setting the table for dinner when Marion entered the kitchen. Her eyes quickly scanned the room, landing on the simple yet nutritious meal I had prepared. This is what you call dinner, she scoffed. Back in my day, we knew how to provide for our families properly. I clenched my teeth, forcing a polite smile. It's healthy, and Mia likes it. Marion snorted, dismissing my efforts with a wave of her hand. Children don't know what's good for them. It's up to us to teach them. Clearly, you lack that understanding. Her words stung, but I remained composed. I had learned that reacting to Marion only fueled her disdain. As the days went by, Marion's presence became more oppressive. She criticized my parenting, my housekeeping, even my choice of clothes. It was as if she was deliberately trying to provoke me. One afternoon, I returned home from a quick errand to find Mia in tears and Marion sitting calmly in the living room, reading a magazine. What happened? I asked, rushing to comfort my daughter. Your child is just being fussy, as usual, Marion replied without looking up. I don't have the patience for such nonsense. I held Mia close, feeling a surge of protective anger. How could she be so cold towards her own granddaughter? Later that week, I had a meeting with a potential client for my small business. Marion, could you please watch Mia for a couple of hours? I asked, hoping for a bit of cooperation. Marion looked at me, her expression one of annoyance. Fine, but make it quick. I have plans later. I returned from the meeting to find Mia once again in distress. Marion was nowhere in sight. After calming Mia down, I confronted Marion. Where were you? I trusted you to look after her. Marion rolled her eyes. I had to step out for a bit. She was sleeping, anyway. What's the big deal? The big deal was that Marion's selfishness was now affecting Mia, my most precious treasure. I realized then that Marion would never change. Her contempt for me had spilled over to Mia, and I wouldn't tolerate it any longer. I called my father that night, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and determination. Dad, it's getting worse. She's not just targeting me now. She's neglecting Mia. Nolan's response was swift and resolute. We need to speed up our plan. It's not safe for you and Mia there anymore. The following day I saw Greg and Marion whispering in the living room, their heads close together in conspiracy. What are you two plotting now? I asked, a hard edge to my voice. Greg looked up, his expression one of feigned innocence. Just discussing some financial matters. Nothing for you to worry about. But I knew better. The rental agreement had unsettled them, and now they were scrambling. I could almost smell their desperation, a scent that, under different circumstances, might have been satisfying. Instead, I felt a cold resolve settling in my heart. They had underestimated me, thinking I would crumble under their pressure. But they were wrong. I was ready to fight back, not just for myself, but for Mia. The battle lines were drawn, and I was no longer just a passive player in their game of control. I was about to change the rules entirely. Every day in the house felt like walking on a tightrope. Marion's presence loomed large, a constant source of negativity. Her comments were like thorns, pricking away at my patience and resolve. One evening, as I put Mia to bed, I overheard Marion speaking to Greg in hushed tones in the living room. Elise is not fit to be a mother. She's too soft, too indecisive. You need someone who can actually run a household efficiently. I stood frozen, listening to their conversation. Greg's reply was a weak agreement, a betrayal that cut deeper than any of Marion's sharp words. The next day, I confronted Greg. Do you really think I'm a bad mother? I asked, my voice shaking. Greg avoided my gaze. It's not just about being a mother, Elise. It's about being responsible, about being adequate. Adequate. The word echoed in my mind, a stinging indictment of my role in this family. As the days passed, Marion's manipulations grew bolder. She rearranged the furniture to her liking, disposed of items she deemed unnecessary, and took over the kitchen, effectively pushing me to the margins of my own home. One day I came home to find Mia crying inconsolably. Marion was in the kitchen, completely ignoring her. "Why aren't you attending to her?" I demanded, my heart racing with worry. Marion shrugged, a cold detachment in her eyes. "She needs to learn to soothe herself. It's part of growing up." That night I called my father, my voice a mix of anger and desperation. "I can't do this anymore, Dad. Greg and Marion are destroying everything I hold dear. I need to get out." Nolan's response was immediate and firm. "You and Mia come stay with me. We'll sort this out." I hesitated. Leaving the house meant giving up the fight, but staying meant subjecting Mia and myself to more torment. The decision crystallized the next morning when I found my personal belongings boxed up in the garage. Marion had decided they were cluttering the house. That act of violation was the final straw. I packed our essentials, taking one last look at the home that had once been a haven of love and happiness. As I closed the door behind me, a sense of relief washed over me. I was leaving behind the oppressive walls of that house, but I was also stepping into the unknown. Staying with my father brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. Mia's laughter returned, filling the house with joy. But the battle was far from over. I met with my lawyer to discuss the divorce. "I want full custody of Mia," I stated firmly, "and I want the house back." The lawyer nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll build a strong case. You have rights, Elise." As the legal proceedings began, I realized this was more than just a divorce. It was a fight for my identity, for my daughter's future, and for justice against the tyranny of Greg and Marion. Greg's reaction to the divorce papers was a mix of shock and anger. "You're making a mistake, Elise. You won't win this." But I was resolute. I had tolerated, endured, and sacrificed enough. It was time to reclaim my life and protect my daughter from the toxic environment Greg and Marion had created. I was no longer the passive, accommodating Elise. I was a mother, a fighter, and I was ready to take back control. The divorce proceedings were a cold, calculated dance of legal maneuvers and emotional confrontations. Greg's shock at my decision to leave quickly turned into a bitter determination to fight back. I sat in the lawyer's office, reviewing the documents. "He's contesting the custody of Mia," I said, my voice laced with disbelief. The lawyer nodded solemnly. "He's also challenging your claim to the house. But we have a strong case, Elise." As the legal battle ensued, my resolve hardened. This was no longer just about leaving a failed marriage. It was about standing up against the injustice and manipulation I had endured. In the midst of this, my father and I finalized our plan for the rental agreement. It was a strategic move designed to legally compel Greg and Marion to vacate my family home. One afternoon, I arrived at the house to deliver the new rental terms. Greg and Marion were waiting, their expressions a mix of defiance and curiosity. I handed Greg the document, watching his face as he read through it. His eyes widened in disbelief. "This is ridiculous. You're increasing the rent to an exorbitant amount." "Yes, Greg," I replied calmly. "That's the market rate for a property of this size and location." Marion interjected, her voice shrill with panic. "You can't do this to us, Elise. This is our home." "No, Marion," I countered, standing my ground. "This is my family home. You and Greg have made it clear that I'm not welcome here. So if you wish to stay, these are the new terms." Greg slammed the document on the table, his anger palpable. "We'll fight this. You won't get away with it." But behind his words, I sensed his fear. The realization that they were losing control was dawning on them. As I left the house, a bittersweet feeling enveloped me. I had taken a significant step in reclaiming my home, but the sight of Mia's abandoned toys in the living room reminded me of the personal cost of this battle. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal appointments and emotional upheaval. I clung to Mia, her innocence and love, my anchors in the storm. During one of the hearings, Greg's true colors came to the forefront. "Elise is unstable, Your Honor," he claimed. "She's not fit to be a sole custodian." I listened, my heart pounding, as my lawyer countered his baseless accusations, with evidence of my stable income and loving relationship with Mia. In a subsequent meeting, Greg's lawyer proposed a settlement. Greg is willing to relinquish his claim to the house in exchange for joint custody and a reduction in the rent. I hesitated, torn between the desire to end this battle and the need to protect Mia from Greg and Marion's toxic influence. But then I remembered Mia's tears, Marion's callousness, and Greg's betrayal. This was no longer just about winning a legal battle. It was about justice and setting an example for my daughter. I refuse, I said firmly. I will not compromise on Mia's well-being or my family home. The decision to continue the fight was a difficult one, but it was necessary. I was no longer the woman who tolerated disrespect and manipulation. I was fighting for my rights, for my daughter's future, and for the dignity that Greg and Marion had tried to strip away from me. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for whatever came next. The day of the final confrontation arrived like a storm on the horizon. Armed with the legal documents, I stood at the doorstep of what used to be my sanctuary, now a battleground. Greg opened the door, his face a mask of defiance. Marion hovered behind him, her eyes betraying her anxiety. "What do you want, Elise?" Greg asked, his tone icy. "I'm here to finalize the arrangements," I said, handing him the updated rental agreement. As he read, his expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. "This is absurd. You're demanding a rent that's beyond unreasonable." "It's the market rate for a property of this size in this location," I replied, my voice steady. "If you can't afford it, you'll have to vacate." Marion stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You can't do this to us. We have nowhere else to go." "That was your choice when you decided to push me out of my own home," I said, meeting her gaze. Greg slammed the document on the table. "We'll see what the court has to say about this. You're not going to get away with trying to evict us from our home." "This ceased being your home when you chose to disregard my rights and my feelings," I retorted. The air was thick with tension, the once familiar living room feeling like a foreign land. I looked around, memories flooding back, of laughter, of love, of a life that once was. Now it was just a shell, housing bitterness and betrayal. As I turned to leave, Marion's voice stopped me. "Elise, please. We can negotiate. There must be a way to resolve this." I paused, considering her words. Then, with a resolve that surprised even me, I said, "There's nothing left to negotiate. You made your decision when you chose to side with Greg against me and Mia." With that, I walked out of the house, leaving behind the echoes of a life that no longer existed. The days that followed were a mix of relief and uncertainty. The legal proceedings were grueling, but my resolve never wavered. I was fighting for my dignity, for my daughter, for the justice that had been denied to me. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. Greg and Marion were given a month to vacate the property. The news hit them like a tidal wave, washing away the last vestiges of their control and arrogance. I watched from a distance as they moved out, their belongings a testament to their shattered dreams and misplaced ambitions. In their eyes, I saw the realization of their defeat, the understanding that their manipulations had backfired. As I stepped back into my family home, now empty of their presence, a sense of peace enveloped me. It was not the peace of victory, but the peace of justice served. I walked through each room, reclaiming the space that had once been ours, mine and Mia's. The walls that had witnessed so much pain now stood as silent sentinels to a new beginning. I knew the road ahead would be challenging. There would be wounds to heal, memories to reconcile. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope. I had fought against the odds, stood up to the tyranny of Greg and Marion, and emerged stronger. This was more than just a legal victory. It was a reclaiming of my life, a testament to the strength I never knew I had. The dust had settled, the legal battles were over, and the once turbulent house was now calm. As I stood in the empty living room, the memories of what had transpired echoed in the silence. Mia played in the corner, her laughter a balm to my weary heart. Watching her, I realized that this struggle, though fraught with pain, was necessary. It wasn't just a fight for a house. It was a battle for our future, for our peace. The day Greg and Marion left, I saw a glimpse of realization in their eyes, a dawning understanding of the consequences of their actions. Marion looked back at the house, her expression one of loss and regret. Greg, defeated and subdued, didn't meet my gaze. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I returned to my small business, finding solace in the familiar routine, and the support of my regular customers. Mia thrived in the newfound stability, her resilience a testament to the strength of our bond. One afternoon, as I was closing the shop, a familiar face appeared at the door. It was Greg. He looked different. The arrogance had left his eyes, replaced by a certain humility. "Elise," he began awkwardly, "I wanted to apologize for everything." I listened, a mix of surprise and skepticism. "Why now, Greg?" He sighed, a deep, weary sound. "Losing the house, the divorce, it made me realize how wrong I was, how much I lost because of my pride and my mother's influence." I considered his words, the years of pain and struggle flashing through my mind. "Your apology doesn't change what happened, Greg. But I accept it, for Mia's sake." Greg nodded, a look of relief passing over his face. "Thank you, Elise, and I'm sorry, truly." As he walked away, I felt a chapter of my life closing. Greg's apology didn't erase the past, but it offered a closure, a finality to the turmoil we had endured. In the months that followed, I renovated the house, turning it into a home once again. The walls were repainted, the rooms refurnished, and new memories were made. It was a sanctuary for Mia and me, a place of healing and growth. I often sat on the porch, watching Mia play in the yard, reflecting on our journey. The challenges had been immense, but they had also revealed a strength I never knew I possessed. I had stood up against injustice, fought for my rights, and reclaimed my life from those who sought to control it. It was a journey of self-discovery, of learning to trust in my own strength and resilience. In the end, this was more than just a story of revenge. It was a tale of empowerment, of rising above the trials and tribulations to forge a better future for myself and my daughter. The house, once a battleground of conflict and manipulation, was now a haven of peace and hope. It was a reminder that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most rewarding victories. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the yard, I held Mia close, grateful for the journey that had brought us here. We had overcome, we had triumphed, and we were finally home. "Did you really think you could just move your parents into our home without asking me, Ryan?" I asked, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and disbelief. Ryan, my husband of 6 years, looked up from his laptop with a smirk that I had grown to despise. "Oh, Amelia, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a while, and besides, it's not like you have a say in this." His words felt like a slap in the face. The house, a charming 2-story nestled in a quiet suburb, wasn't just any house. It was the home my grandparents had left me, the place where I'd planned to raise our son, Lucas, away from the toxicity of Ryan's family. "You do remember that this house is in my name, right?" I retorted, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Ryan's expression faltered, his smugness giving way to a flicker of uncertainty. As our 2-year-old Lucas toddled into the room, I forced a smile for his sake. He was blissfully unaware of the tension, his chubby hands reaching up towards me. Scooping him into my arms, I kissed his forehead, trying to calm the storm inside me. "I'm not okay with this, Ryan. Your parents, they've never respected me or our space. Why now?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Ryan shrugged, his indifference stoking my frustration. "They're family, Amelia. You wouldn't understand." Family. The word echoed in my mind mockingly. My own family, who ran a small but beloved coffee shop in town, had always been my sanctuary. They were nothing like Ryan's controlling, overbearing parents. The doorbell rang, interrupting our standoff. Through the peephole, I saw them. Ryan's parents, suitcases in tow, ready to invade our life. My heart sank. "Fine, Ryan, let them in. But this isn't over," I hissed, handing Lucas to him before opening the door. "Amelia, darling," cooed Ryan's mother, sweeping past me without a second glance. His father followed, a stern man who'd barely acknowledged me since our wedding day. As they settled in, making themselves comfortable in my living room, I felt a sense of intrusion that was all too familiar. This was just the beginning, I realized. But as I watched them, something within me shifted. I was done being the compliant daughter-in-law, bending to their whims. I retreated to the kitchen, my mind racing. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I was ready to fight for it. The following days turned into a blur of unwelcome changes. Ryan's mother, Elaine, had a way of making her presence known in the most suffocating manner. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized my parenting, and treated our home as if it were her own. "Lucas shouldn't be eating that, Amelia. It's not healthy," Elaine chided one morning as I prepared Lucas's breakfast. I bit back a sharp retort, feeling the familiar sting of her judgment. He's fine, Elaine. It's just cereal. She skeed, shaking her head. In our house, we believe in a proper diet. You really should learn. Her comments were like needles, each one pricking at my patience. Ryan, as usual, was of no help, buried in his work and oblivious to the growing tension. One evening, as I put Lucas to bed, Elaine barged into his room. He's still not sleeping through the night? You must be doing something wrong. Her words were a slap in the face, undermining my efforts as a mother. I'm doing the best I can, I snapped, unable to contain my frustration. Elaine's eyes narrowed. Clearly, your best isn't good enough. Maybe if you had a real job and some structure in your life. I felt a surge of anger. This is my house, Elaine. You're a guest here. Don't forget that. Her laugh was cold and dismissive. Oh dear. Ryan never mentioned how delusional you are. This is his house too, and as his mother, I've every right to be here. The following day, I reached my breaking point. I found Elaine in Lucas's room, going through his drawers. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. I'm just organizing. This room is a mess, she replied, not even bothering to look at me. That's it! I want you out of my house now! I exclaimed, feeling a mix of fury and desperation. Elaine turned to face me, her expression one of mock surprise. Your house? Oh, sweetie, you're just the wife. This is Ryan's house too, and he wants us here. I stormed out of the room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Ryan's betrayal, Elaine's intrusiveness, the way they dismissed my feelings, it was all too much. I was tired of being pushed around, tired of having my home invaded by people who had no respect for me. That night, as I lay in bed, a plan began to form in my mind. I was going to take back control of my life, my home, and my son's future. Ryan and his parents had crossed a line, and it was time for them to learn that I wasn't going to be their doormat any longer. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. A few days later, Ryan dropped a bombshell during an already tense dinner. My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations, he said, nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I felt my blood boil. Longer? Ryan, we never discussed them staying in the first place, he shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It's just for a few more weeks. What's the big deal? The big deal? The big deal is that your mother treats me like an intruder in my own home. I snapped, my frustration reaching its peak. Elaine, overhearing our conversation, chimed in with her usual condescending tone. Amelia, you're overreacting. We're family. You should be more accommodating. That night, sleep eluded me. Their words echoed in my mind, fueling a growing resolve. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I called my brother, Alex, who had always been my confidant. They're taking over my life, Alex. I can't take it anymore, I confessed, choking back tears. Alex's voice was firm and supportive. Amelia, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them bully you. It's your house, your rules. His words were the push I needed. I decided to confront Ryan, but this time I would be prepared. I gathered evidence of Elaine's overbearing behavior, the rearranged kitchen, the disrupted routines, her constant belittling comments. Confrontation day arrived. I waited until Elaine and Ryan were in the living room. We need to talk, now, I announced, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ryan looked up, surprised by my tone. What's this about, Amelia? It's about your parents, Ryan. Their constant interference, their disrespect for my boundaries. It ends today, I declared, holding up my list of grievances. Elaine scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to help. Help? By undermining me at every turn? By treating me like I don't matter in my own home? I countered, my anger palpable. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Amelia, they're my parents. We can't just kick them out. No, Ryan. They're guests in my home, and they've overstayed their welcome. Either they leave, or I do. With Lucas, I ultimatumed, my resolve unwavering. The room fell silent, the gravity of my words hanging in the air. I saw the flicker of realization in Ryan's eyes, but it was Elaine who spoke first. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, her facade slipping. Watch me, I retorted, my voice laced with determination. That night, Ryan's parents packed their bags. As they left, Elaine shot me a venomous look. You'll regret this, Amelia. But as the door closed behind them, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The days following Elaine and her husband's departure were eerily quiet. Ryan's demeanor had shifted to one of cold detachment, his interactions with me minimal and strained. I found solace in the peace of my reclaimed home and the joyous laughter of Lucas. One evening, as Lucas played with his toys, Ryan announced, "I've got to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few weeks." His tone was indifferent, as if our strained relationship had taken a backseat to his career. "Fine," I replied curtly, barely concealing my relief at the prospect of his absence. After Ryan left, the house felt different, liberating even. I started to revert the changes Elaine had imposed, each alteration feeling like a small victory. But the true turning point came when I stumbled upon a series of emails on Ryan's laptop, which he'd carelessly left open. They detailed an affair, an ongoing betrayal that cut deeper than any of his mother's snide remarks. Anger, hurt, and a sense of betrayal churned within me. I decided it was time for Ryan to face the consequences of his actions. I began to meticulously plan my next moves, each step calculated to ensure that Ryan and his family paid for their deceit and manipulation. The first step was to secure my financial and legal standing. I contacted a lawyer, explained my situation, and started the proceedings for what was now an inevitable divorce. Next, I turned my attention to the house, the symbol of my grandparents' legacy and my independence. I reached out to a real estate agent. "I want to sell the house, quickly and quietly," I told her. She was taken aback but sensed the urgency in my voice. "Are you sure about this, Amelia? This is a big decision," she cautioned. "I've never been more sure of anything," I replied with a resolve born of betrayal and a newfound strength. The house went on the market, and within days, offers began to roll in. The thought of Ryan returning to find his precious control stripped away brought a bitter satisfaction. In the midst of this, I reconnected with my family, drawing strength from their support. My parents were appalled by Ryan's behavior and rallied around me and Lucas. "We're here for you, no matter what," my father assured me. As I watched Lucas play, innocent and unaffected by the turmoil, I made a silent vow to protect his happiness at all costs. Ryan's return loomed on the horizon, but I was no longer the woman he had left behind. I was ready to confront him, armed with the truth and a plan to reclaim my life. The day Ryan returned was marked with a tension that hung thick in the air. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, envisioning every possible outcome, yet my heart raced as I heard his key turn in the lock. "Amelia, I'm home," Ryan called out, his voice echoing through the now unfamiliar space. I emerged from the kitchen, my posture rigid. "Welcome back, Ryan. We need to talk." He glanced around, noticing the changes I had made. "What's going on? The house looks different." I didn't flinch. "I sold the house, Ryan. It's no longer ours." His face contorted with disbelief. "You did what? You can't just sell our house without telling me." "It's my house, Ryan, and after what I discovered, I don't think you have a say in it anymore," I said, my voice steady but laced with a simmering anger. He scoffed, trying to regain his composure. "What are you talking about?" "The affair, Ryan. I know everything," I revealed, watching as his facade crumbled. His attempt at denial was weak and short-lived. "Amelia, it's not what you think." "I think it's exactly what it looks like. You betrayed me, our family," I retorted, the hurt evident in my tone. Ryan's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're overreacting. We can work through this." "There's no we anymore, Ryan. I've filed for divorce," I declared, handing him the papers. The ensuing conversation was a blur of accusations and denials, but I stood my ground. The man I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger fueled by selfish desires. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a sense of liberation mixed with apprehension. I had taken the first step towards a new life. But the battle was far from over. In the following weeks, the reality of our situation became public. Ryan's parents, once so imposing and confident, were now caught in the crossfire of their son's indiscretions. Their attempts to contact me were met with silence. I had severed all ties, focusing solely on Lucas and the finalization of the divorce. The day of the court hearing arrived. Ryan looked defeated, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him. As the judge granted the divorce and custody of Lucas to me, I felt a sense of justice. Ryan's plea for reconciliation after the hearing fell on deaf ears. "You made your choice, Ryan. Now live with it," I said, turning away from him for the last time. The news of our divorce and Ryan's affair spread, affecting his reputation and relationships. His parents, once so proud and judgmental, were now shunned by those who had once respected them. As I walked out of the courthouse, holding Lucas's hand, I realized that this was not just an end, but a new beginning. A fresh start for me and my son, free from deceit and manipulation. The future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. Life after the divorce felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel into the light. I had regained control, not just of the house, which was now sold, but of my life. Lucas, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities, thrived in the love and stability I provided. My days were busy but fulfilling, with my focus now on rebuilding our lives and managing the coffee shop, which had become my sanctuary. However, the shadow of Ryan and his parents lingered. One day, as I was closing the shop, Ryan appeared, looking disheveled and desperate, a stark contrast to the composed man I had once known. "Amelia, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded, his eyes searching mine for a hint of the compassion that once existed. I hesitated, the sight of him stirring a mix of emotions. "What do you want, Ryan?" "It's about the alimony and child support," he began, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "I can't afford it. My job, I lost it because of the scandal, and my parents, they're broke too." His words were like a cold splash of reality. "That's not my problem, Ryan. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences." "But Amelia, I have nothing left. I'm begging you, for old time's sake." His voice broke, revealing the depth of his despair. I felt a pang of pity, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of his betrayal. "Old time's sake? Those times are gone, Ryan. You should have thought about the consequences before you cheated and lied." I turned to leave, but his next words stopped me in my tracks. "I'm sorry, Amelia. Truly I am. I was a fool, and I ruined everything. Please, help me." For a moment, I saw the man I had once loved, vulnerable and regretful. But the pain he had caused was too deep, the betrayal too raw. "I'm sorry, Ryan, but I can't help you. You need to figure this out on your own," I said firmly, closing the chapter of our shared past for good. As I walked away, leaving Ryan standing alone, I felt a sense of closure. The journey had been painful, filled with betrayal and heartache, but it had led me to a place of strength and independence. Life moved on. Lucas grew, his laughter and curiosity filling our home with joy. The coffee shop flourished, becoming a hub of warmth and community. And as for me, I found contentment in the simple pleasures: the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of Lucas's giggles, and the support of friends and family. Ryan and his parents became distant memories, their legacy a cautionary tale of the consequences of betrayal and selfishness. My journey had taught me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. As I locked the shop that evening, I looked up at the sky, its hues of orange and pink signaling the end of another day. I smiled, holding Lucas's hand tightly. Our future was uncertain, but it was bright. We were moving forward, one step at a time, into a new chapter of our lives. I remember the day as if it were yesterday. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a beautiful backdrop to what I thought would be the happiest news of my life. My name is Laura, and back then I was living a life that was about to take an unexpected turn. I used to dream of the stage, the lights, the applause. My days were filled with rehearsals and performances with my local drama club. But all that changed when I met Michael. He was charming, successful, and, as I later found out, controlling. He made it clear, if I wanted a life with him, my acting dreams had to go. Torn between love and passion, I chose him. Fast forward 10 years, our marriage had its ups and downs, but nothing prepared me for that evening. I stood in our kitchen, a pregnancy test hidden in my pocket, a positive result that I couldn't wait to share. I had even bought a small chocolate cake, our favorite, to celebrate the news. But Michael walked in with a tired look and something far more life-altering than my news: divorce papers. He didn't even wait for me to speak. "I want a divorce, Laura," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. I was stunned, the words echoing in my head. "What? Why now?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "It's not sudden, Laura. I've been thinking about this for a long time," he replied, avoiding my gaze. I felt my world crumbling. "But why? Is there someone else?" The question burned in my throat. "Just "Let's get divorced," he said, refusing to answer. The joy of my pregnancy evaporated in that instant, leaving me with a heartache so profound that I couldn't even speak of the baby. I just stood there, holding back tears as he walked away, leaving me with nothing but the unsigned divorce papers and a shattered heart. That was the last thing Michael said to me, not knowing about the child growing inside me. I ended up single again, but this time with a life growing inside me. And maybe, just maybe, it was this unborn child that gave me the strength to endure what was to come. The following years were a blur of sleepless nights and tireless days. Being a single mother was hard, but Emily, my little angel, made every struggle worth it. She had her father's eyes, but thankfully nothing else of him. She was my joy, my miracle. Then, 5 years later, life decided to throw me another curveball. I was at the local supermarket, Emily in tow, when I saw him, Michael. He looked different, disheveled, like life hadn't been kind to him. He was with a young woman, probably in her late 20s, clinging to his arm. The sight of them together twisted something inside me. "Hey, long time no see," he said, a smirk on his face. I forced a smile. "Michael, you've changed." "Yeah, life happens. Who's this?" he asked, nodding at Emily. "My daughter, Emily," I replied, my voice steady. He looked at Emily, then back at me, a puzzled expression crossing his face. "Your daughter? When?" "After our divorce," I said simply. The young woman laughed mockingly. "Oh, the ex-wife. So this is the kid?" Emily looked up at me, her big eyes filled with questions. I squeezed her hand, a silent promise that I'd protect her from the pain I once felt. Michael just shrugged, his attention already back on his companion. "Let's go, Karen. We don't have all day." As they walked away, I looked down at Emily, her innocent face a stark contrast to the ugliness we had just encountered. In that moment, I knew that no matter what, I would never let Michael hurt her, as he had hurt me. Life after Michael was a series of challenges and triumphs. I raised Emily, my little star, on my own. Each day brought new adventures, and each night when I tucked her into bed, I felt a sense of accomplishment that no acting role could ever give me. One day when Emily was 6, she came home from school, her face lit up with excitement. "Mommy, my teacher says I'm good at acting. She wants me to be in the school play." Hearing those words, I felt a mix of pride and a pang of my long-buried dreams. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, hugging her tight. "You'll be amazing." As Emily's interest in acting grew, so did her talent. She was a natural, reminding me of my own youthful aspirations. I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. The child I had with the man who made me give up acting was now following in my footsteps. Life had a strange way of coming full circle. One autumn afternoon, as Emily and I walked home from her drama class, we ran into Michael again. He was alone this time, looking even more worn out than before. "Laura, Emily, fancy seeing you here," he said, his voice lacking the confidence it once had. "What do you want, Michael?" I asked, my tone cold. "Just saying hello. Is that a crime?" he replied, a defensive edge to his voice. Emily hid behind me, peeking out curiously. Michael's gaze fell on her, and for a moment, his facade cracked, revealing a hint of regret. "You never told me about her," he said softly. "There was nothing to tell. You made your choice," I responded, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. Michael's eyes hardened. "I guess I did, but seeing her now, she's mine too, isn't she?" I felt a surge of protectiveness. "She's my daughter. You lost any claim to her when you walked out on us." He scoffed. "I see you're still bitter. But remember, Laura, blood is thicker than water." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving a chilling promise hanging in the air. I hugged Emily closer, a sense of foreboding settling in my heart. That night, as I watched Emily sleep, I promised myself I would do whatever it took to keep her safe from Michael's toxic influence. He had already taken my dreams. I wouldn't let him take my daughter's future too. The encounter with Michael lingered in my mind like a bad aftertaste. But life had to go on. Emily's play was approaching, and she was the star. The night of the performance, the school auditorium buzzed with excitement. I sat in the front row, my heart swelling with pride as Emily took the stage. She was a natural, her performance flawless, her joy infectious. After the play, as we were leaving, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I was met with the last person I wanted to see, Michael. "Great show," he said, his voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. "What are you doing here, Michael?" I asked, my tone icy. I wanted to see my daughter perform. She's got talent, just like her mother, he replied, a smirk on his face. I bristled at his words. Emily is nothing like me. She's her own person. He leaned in closer, his breath reeking of arrogance. Come on, Laura, we both know she got that talent from you, and now it's my turn to be part of her life. His words sent a chill down my spine. You gave up that right a long time ago. Michael laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Rights can be reclaimed, Laura, especially when it comes to family. Just then, Emily ran up to us, her face glowing. Mommy, did you see me? I was a princess. I smiled at her, pushing my fear aside. You were wonderful, sweetie. Michael crouched down to her level. You were amazing, Emily. Daddy's very proud of you. Emily looked at him, confusion etched on her face. Daddy? I quickly intervened. Emily, this is Michael. We used to know each other. Michael stood up, his eyes locking with mine. We'll see each other again, Laura. This isn't over. As he walked away, I hugged Emily tightly, a sense of dread washing over me. Michael's words echoed in my head, a warning of the storm that was about to hit our lives. I had fought hard to build a peaceful life for Emily and me. I wasn't about to let Michael destroy it. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Emily's star continued to rise. Her performance at the school play had caught the attention of a local talent agent who offered her small roles in commercials and local TV shows. Emily was thrilled, and so was I, albeit cautiously. My past encounters with Michael had left a lingering shadow over our newfound happiness. Then one day, as we were leaving a studio after a successful audition, I saw him again. Michael stood there, leaning against his car, a smug look on his face. Laura, I must say, Emily is quite the little star, he said, his eyes gleaming with something akin to greed. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What do you want, Michael? He stepped forward, his voice dripping with false sincerity. I've been thinking. Emily needs her father now more than ever. Fame can be tough on a kid. I scoffed. You're hardly father material, Michael. You can't just waltz back into her life because she's on TV now. He smirked. But I am her father, Laura, and it seems to me that her success could be lucrative. The implication of his words hit me like a slap. You're unbelievable. You want to profit from your own daughter? Michael shrugged nonchalantly. I'm just saying, as her father, I should have a say in her career, and perhaps a share of her earnings. I stepped closer, anger surging through me. Listen to me, Michael. You are not going to use Emily. She's not your ticket to easy money. His expression hardened. We'll see about that, Laura. I have rights, and I intend to use them. As he drove away, I felt a cold fear settle in my heart. Michael was serious, and I knew he wouldn't stop at anything to get what he wanted. I had to protect Emily, not just as her mother, but also from the man who claimed to be her father. A man who saw his own daughter as nothing more than a means to an end. The threat Michael posed became all too real in the following days. I received a letter from a law firm, cold and formal, stating Michael's intention to claim parental rights and a portion of Emily's earnings. My hands trembled as I read it. The audacity of the man I once loved now seeking to exploit our daughter was chilling. I immediately sought legal counsel. The lawyer, a stern yet kind-hearted woman named Miss Thompson, listened to my story with a furrowed brow. Don't worry, Laura. We'll fight this. He may be her biological father, but his intentions are clear. It's about money, not Emily's well-being. The day of the court hearing arrived. I sat there, clutching Emily's hand, as Michael and his lawyer presented their case. He spoke of his rights as a father, his voice oozing insincerity. I only want what's best for my daughter, Michael proclaimed, shooting a glance at Emily, who shrank back in her seat. When it was our turn, Miss Thompson was formidable. Your Honor, Mr. Michael here showed no interest in Emily until he learned of her budding career. His intentions are not parental care, but financial gain. The judge looked over at Michael, skepticism in his eyes. Mr. Michael, what have you done to build a relationship with Emily since your divorce? Michael stuttered. Well, I've been busy, but I always cared. Your Honor, he's lying, I blurted out, unable to contain myself. He never cared until now. The judge nodded slowly, making notes. After a tense hour, he delivered his judgment. Michael's petition was denied. The relief that washed over me was indescribable, but as we left the courthouse, Michael's eyes met mine, burning with fury and defeat. You'll pay for this, Laura, he hissed under his breath. I tightened my grip on Emily's hand, whispering to her that everything would be okay. But as we walked away, I knew this wasn't over. Michael's revenge would come in another form, and I needed to be ready. My only goal was to protect Emily, whatever the cost. In the wake of the court decision, a deceptive calm settled over our lives. Emily's career continued to flourish, and for a moment it seemed like we could finally move past Michael's shadow. But that peace was shattered one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was running late from work, and Emily was at a photo shoot with her manager, Molly. As I hurried towards the studio, my phone rang. It was Molly, her voice laced with panic. "Laura, it's Emily. She's gone." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, gone?" "Michael, he took her." I only looked away for a second, and Molly's voice broke. Rage and fear gripped me. "I'm on my way." I arrived at the studio to find police cars and a crowd of onlookers. Molly was in tears. "I'm so sorry, Laura. I tried to stop him, but he pushed me away." The police took our statements, and I described Michael with a cold fury I didn't recognize in myself. As the reality of the situation sank in, my fear for Emily turned into something fiercer. I wouldn't let Michael harm our daughter. The next hours were a blur of police questions, flashing lights, and the growing pit of fear in my stomach. I posted on social media, pleading for any information on Emily's whereabouts. The response was overwhelming. Emily's fans mobilized, sharing the post, offering help, and providing leads. Then a breakthrough came. Karen, Michael's girlfriend, reached out. She had seen my post and, in a turn of conscience, provided Michael's location. Armed with this information, the police moved swiftly. They found Michael in a rundown motel, Emily unharmed but scared. As they arrested Michael, I held Emily tight, promising her that she was safe now, that I would never let anything like this happen again. The aftermath was a whirlwind of media attention. Michael was charged with kidnapping, but his lawyer argued for a lesser sentence, citing emotional distress. The thought of him getting away with a slap on the wrist was unbearable. But Emily's agency, worried about the public's perception, urged for a settlement. Reluctantly, I agreed, but on one condition. Michael would have no rights to Emily, legally or financially. The settlement was a hollow victory. Michael was free, but his reputation was in tatters. The story of his greed and callousness spread, and he lost his job. Shunned by friends and colleagues, he became a pariah. As for Emily, her bravery and resilience only endeared her more to her fans. Her career continued to soar, and through it all, she remained grounded. Her sweet smile a constant reminder of the strength and love that had carried us through the darkest of times. I remember the day as if it were yesterday. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a beautiful backdrop to what I thought would be the happiest news of my life. My name is Laura, and back then I was living a life that was about to take an unexpected turn. I used to dream of the stage, the lights, the applause. My days were filled with rehearsals and performances with my local drama club, but all that changed when I met Michael. He was charming, successful, and, as I later found out, controlling. He made it clear, if I wanted a life with him, my acting dreams had to go. Torn between love and passion, I chose him. Fast forward 10 years, our marriage had its ups and downs, but nothing prepared me for that evening. I stood in our kitchen, a pregnancy test hidden in my pocket, a positive result that I couldn't wait to share. I had even bought a small chocolate cake, our favorite, to celebrate the news. But Michael walked in with a tired look and something far more life-altering than my news: divorce papers. He didn't even wait for me to speak. "I want a divorce, Laura," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. I was stunned, the words echoing in my head. "What? Why now?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "It's not sudden, Laura. I've been thinking about this for a long time," he replied, avoiding my gaze. I felt my world crumbling. "But why? Is there someone else?" The question burned in my throat. "Just, let's get divorced," he said, refusing to answer. The joy of my pregnancy evaporated in that instant, leaving me with a heartache so profound that I couldn't even speak of the baby. I just stood there, holding back tears, as he walked away, leaving me with nothing but the unsigned divorce papers and a shattered heart. That was the last thing Michael said to me, not knowing about the child growing inside me. I ended up single again, but this time with a life growing inside me. And maybe, just maybe, it was this unborn child that gave me the strength to endure what was to come. The following years were a blur of sleepless nights and tireless days. Being a single mother was hard, but Emily, my little angel, made every struggle worth it. She had her father's eyes, but thankfully nothing else of him. She was my joy, my miracle. Then, 5 years later, life decided to throw me another curveball. I was at the local supermarket, Emily in tow, when I saw him, Michael. He looked different, disheveled, like life hadn't been kind to him. He was with a young woman, probably in her late 20s, clinging to his arm. The sight of them together twisted something inside me. "Hey, long time no see," he said, a smirk on his face. I forced a smile. "Michael, you've changed." "Yeah, life happens. Who's this?" he asked, nodding at Emily. "My daughter, Emily," I replied, my voice steady. He looked at Emily, then back at me, a puzzled expression crossing his face. "Your daughter? When?" "After our divorce," I said simply. The young woman laughed mockingly. "Oh, the ex-wife. So this is the kid?" Emily looked up at me, her big eyes filled with questions. I squeezed her hand, a silent promise that I'd protect her from the pain I once felt. Michael just shrugged, his attention already back on his companion. "Let's go, Karen. We don't have all day." As they walked away, I looked down at Emily, her innocent face a stark contrast to the ugliness we had just encountered. In that moment, I knew that no matter what, I would never let Michael hurt her, as he had hurt me. Life after Michael was a series of challenges and triumphs. I raised Emily, my little star, on my own. Each day brought new adventures, and each night when I tucked her into bed, I felt a sense of accomplishment that no acting role could ever give me. One day when Emily was 6, she came home from school, her face lit up with excitement. "Mommy, my teacher says I'm good at acting. She wants me to be in the school play." Hearing those words, I felt a mix of pride and a pang of my long-buried dreams. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, hugging her tight. "You'll be amazing." As Emily's interest in acting grew, so did her talent. She was a natural, reminding me of my own youthful aspirations. I couldn't help but feel a sense of irony. The child I had with the man who made me give up acting was now following in my footsteps. Life had a strange way of coming full circle. One autumn afternoon, as Emily and I walked home from her drama class, we ran into Michael again. He was alone this time, looking even more worn out than before. "Laura, Emily, fancy seeing you here," he said, his voice lacking the confidence it once had. "What do you want, Michael?" I asked, my tone cold. "Just saying hello. Is that a crime?" he replied, a defensive edge to his voice. Emily hid behind me, peeking out curiously. Michael's gaze fell on her, and for a moment, his facade cracked, revealing a hint of regret. "You never told me about her," he said softly. "There was nothing to tell. You made your choice," I responded, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. Michael's eyes hardened. "I guess I did, but seeing her now, she's mine too, isn't she?" I felt a surge of protectiveness. "She's my daughter. You lost any claim to her when you walked out on us." He scoffed. "I see you're still bitter. But remember, Laura, blood is thicker than water." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving a chilling promise hanging in the air. I hugged Emily closer, a sense of foreboding settling in my heart. That night, as I watched Emily sleep, I promised myself I would do whatever it took to keep her safe from Michael's toxic influence. He had already taken my dreams. I wouldn't let him take my daughter's future too. The encounter with Michael lingered in my mind like a bad aftertaste. But life had to go on. Emily's play was approaching, and she was the star. The night of the performance, the school auditorium buzzed with excitement. I sat in the front row, my heart swelling with pride as Emily took the stage. She was a natural, her performance flawless, her joy infectious. After the play, as we were leaving, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I was met with the last person I wanted to see, Michael. "Great show," he said, his voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. "What are you doing here, Michael?" I asked, my tone icy. "I wanted to see my daughter perform. She's got talent, just like her mother," he replied, a smirk on his face. I bristled at his words. "Emily is nothing like me. She's her own person." He leaned in closer, his breath reeking of arrogance. "Come on, Laura. We both know she got that talent from you. And now it's my turn to be part of her life." His words sent a chill down my spine. "You gave up that right a long time ago." Michael laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Rights can be reclaimed, Laura, especially when it comes to family." Just then, Emily ran up to us, her face glowing. "Mommy, did you see me? I was a princess." I smiled at her, pushing my fear aside. "You were wonderful, sweetie." Michael crouched down to her level. "You were amazing, Emily. Daddy's very proud of you." Emily looked at him, confusion etched on her face. "Daddy?" I quickly intervened. "Emily, this is Michael. We used to know each other." Michael stood up, his eyes locking with mine. "We'll see each other again, Laura. This isn't over." As he walked away, I hugged Emily tightly, a sense of dread washing over me. Michael's words echoed in my head, a warning of the storm that was about to hit our lives. I had fought hard to build a peaceful life for Emily and me. I wasn't about to let Michael destroy it. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Emily's star continued to rise. Her performance at the school play had caught the attention of a local talent agent who offered her small roles in commercials and local TV shows. Emily was thrilled, and so was I, albeit cautiously. My past encounters with Michael had left a lingering shadow over our newfound happiness. Then one day, as we were leaving a studio after a successful audition, I saw him again. Michael stood there, leaning against his car, a smug look on his face. "Laura, I must say, Emily is quite the little star," he said, his eyes gleaming with something akin to greed. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "What do you want, Michael?" He stepped forward, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "I've been thinking. Emily needs her father now more than ever. Fame can be tough on a kid." I scoffed. "You're hardly father material, Michael. You can't just waltz back into her life because she's on TV now." He smirked. "But I am her father, Laura, and it seems to me that her success could be lucrative." The implication of his words hit me like a slap. "You're unbelievable. You want to profit from your own daughter?" Michael shrugged nonchalantly. "I'm just saying, as her father, I should have a say in her career, and perhaps a share of her earnings." I stepped closer, anger surging through me. "Listen to me, Michael. You are not going to use Emily. She's not your ticket to easy money." His expression hardened. "We'll see about that, Laura. I have rights, and I intend to use them." As he drove away, I felt a cold fear settle in my heart. Michael was serious, and I knew he wouldn't stop at anything to get what he wanted. I had to protect Emily, not just as her mother, but also from the man who claimed to be her father. A man who saw his own daughter as nothing more than a means to an end. The threat Michael posed became all too real in the following days. I received a letter from a law firm, cold and formal, stating Michael's intention to claim parental rights and a portion of Emily's earnings. My hands trembled as I read it. The audacity of the man I once loved now seeking to exploit our daughter was chilling. I immediately sought legal counsel. The lawyer, a stern yet kind-hearted woman named Miss Thompson, listened to my story with a furrowed brow. "Don't worry, Laura. We'll fight this. He may be her biological father, but his intentions are clear. It's about money, not Emily's well-being." The day of the court hearing arrived. I sat there, clutching Emily's hand, as Michael and his lawyer presented their case. He spoke of his rights as a father, his voice oozing insincerity. "I only want what's best for my daughter," Michael proclaimed, shooting a glance at Emily, who shrank back in her seat. When it was our turn, Miss Thompson was formidable. "Your Honor, Mr. Michael here showed no interest in Emily until he learned of her budding career. His intentions are not parental care, but financial gain." The judge looked over at Michael, skepticism in his eyes. "Mr. Michael, what have you done to build a relationship with Emily since your divorce?" Michael stuttered. "Well, I've been busy, but I always cared." "Your Honor, he's lying," I blurted out, unable to contain myself. "He never cared until now." The judge nodded slowly, making notes. After a tense hour, he delivered his judgment. Michael's petition was denied. The relief that washed over me was indescribable, but as we left the courthouse, Michael's eyes met mine, burning with fury and defeat. "You'll pay for this, Laura," he hissed under his breath. I tightened my grip on Emily's hand, whispering to her that everything would be okay. But as we walked away, I knew this wasn't over. Michael's revenge would come in another form, and I needed to be ready. My only goal was to protect Emily, whatever the cost. In the wake of the court decision, a deceptive calm settled over our lives. Emily's career continued to flourish, and for a moment it seemed like we could finally move past Michael's shadow. But that peace was shattered one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was running late from work, and Emily was at a photo shoot with her manager, Molly. As I hurried towards the studio, my phone rang. It was Molly, her voice laced with panic. "Laura, it's Emily. She's gone." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, gone?" "Michael, he took her." I only looked away for a second, and Molly's voice broke. Rage and fear gripped me. "I'm on my way." I arrived at the studio to find police cars and a crowd of onlookers. Molly was in tears. "I'm so sorry, Laura. I tried to stop him, but he pushed me away." The police took our statements, and I described Michael with a cold fury I didn't recognize in myself. As the reality of the situation sank in, my fear for Emily turned into something fiercer. I wouldn't let Michael harm our daughter. The next hours were a blur of police questions, flashing lights, and the growing pit of fear in my stomach. I posted on social media, pleading for any information on Emily's whereabouts. The response was overwhelming. Emily's fans mobilized, sharing the post, offering help, and providing leads. Then a breakthrough came. Karen, Michael's girlfriend, reached out. She had seen my post and, in a turn of conscience, provided Michael's location. Armed with this information, the police moved swiftly. They found Michael in a rundown motel, Emily unharmed but scared. As they arrested Michael, I held Emily tight, promising her that she was safe now, that I would never let anything like this happen again. The aftermath was a whirlwind of media attention. Michael was charged with kidnapping, but his lawyer argued for a lesser sentence, citing emotional distress. The thought of him getting away with a slap on the wrist was unbearable. But Emily's agency, worried about the public's perception, urged for a settlement. Reluctantly, I agreed, but on one condition. Michael would have no rights to Emily, legally or financially. The settlement was a hollow victory. Michael was free, but his reputation was in tatters. The story of his greed and callousness spread, and he lost his job. Shunned by friends and colleagues, he became a pariah. As for Emily, her bravery and resilience only endeared her more to her fans. Her career continued to soar, and through it all, she remained grounded, her sweet smile a constant reminder of the strength and love that had carried us through the darkest of times.
The day Easton chose his family over me still plays in my mind like a broken record. I remember standing in our kitchen, watching him pack his things while his mother's words echoed through our apartment. "She'll never be good enough for a Lynch." My name is Delilah, and I was naive enough to believe love could bridge any gap. I grew up waiting tables and studying nights, while Easton grew up in a mansion with a silver spoon in his mouth. But when we met at that coffee shop where I worked, none of that seemed to matter. "You can't just leave," I said, my voice barely a whisper, as he stuffed his expensive shirts into a suitcase. "After everything we've been through." Easton wouldn't look at me. "My family, they're right, Delilah. We come from different worlds." I tried to make them understand, but what? My background isn't prestigious enough. My father wasn't a CEO. The coffee mug in my hand trembled. "I thought you were different. You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "The family business, our reputation." "No, you don't understand," I cut him off. "I loved you despite your family's money, not because of it." The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Tiffany, his mother, stood there in her designer suit, perfectly manicured nails drumming against her purse. She barely acknowledged my presence as she walked in. "Easton, darling, the car is waiting," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Your father is expecting us for dinner." I watched as Easton's shoulders slumped in defeat. The man I married, who once promised to stand by me through anything, was crumbling under his mother's gaze. "You should have seen this coming, dear," Tiffany said to me, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Someone like you, well, you must have known this was temporary." My best friend Bridget had warned me about the Lynches. "They're old money," she'd said. "They'll never accept someone they consider beneath them." I'd dismissed her concerns, believing Easton's love would be enough. "Someone like me." I stepped closer to Tiffany. "You mean someone who worked her way through college? Someone who knows the value of hard work?" "Mother, please," Easton interrupted, but Tiffany raised her hand to silence him. "Someone common," she replied. "We have certain standards to maintain. Surely you understand." The weight of my wedding ring suddenly felt like lead. I slipped it off my finger and placed it on the counter with a soft clink. I understand perfectly. I understand that your son isn't half the man I thought he was. Easton flinched. Delilah, don't what? Don't make this harder. You've made your choice, Easton. You chose them. I turned to Tiffany. Congratulations, you've won. But remember this moment, because I promise you'll regret it. Is that a threat? Tiffany's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. No, I smiled, feeling a strange calm wash over me. It's a promise to myself. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door, pausing only to look back at Easton one last time. He stood there, trapped between his mother and his suitcase, looking lost and small. You know what's funny? I said. I actually felt sorry for you, growing up with parents like these, but now I see you're exactly like them. The door closed behind me with a satisfying thud. In my car, I called Bridget, my hands shaking as I held the phone. He's gone, I managed to say, before the tears started. I'm coming over, she said immediately. Pack your bags. You're staying with me. I can't just. Yes, you can, and you will. This isn't the end of your story, Delilah. It's just the beginning. As I drove away from the apartment I'd shared with Easton, I caught a glimpse of Tiffany's car in my rearview mirror. Mother and son, heading back to their privileged bubble. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd only succeeded in setting me free. That night, curled up on Bridget's couch with a glass of wine, I made myself another promise. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, until the day came when Easton and his family would realize exactly what they'd thrown away. To new beginnings, Bridget raised her glass. To revenge, served cold, I replied, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Little did they know, the humble waitress they'd dismissed would soon become their worst nightmare. Not through malice or schemes, but through the simple act of rising above their expectations and succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. You can't mope around my apartment forever, Bridget announced one morning, yanking open the curtains. It's been 2 weeks. I pulled the blanket over my head, but she wasn't having it. I'm not moping, I muttered. I'm strategizing. Is that what we're calling watching sad movies and eating ice cream now? She sat on the edge of the couch. Come on, I've got something to show you. Reluctantly, I followed her to her home office, where her laptop displayed a commercial space for rent in downtown. The price made me wince. Before you say no, Bridget held up her hand. Hear me out. Remember those organic skincare products you used to make? The ones everyone at the wedding raved about? I nodded. It had started as a hobby, mixing natural ingredients in my kitchen to create face masks and moisturizers. Even Tiffany had unknowingly complimented my homemade face cream at the wedding. Before she knew about my background. There's a massive market for clean, sustainable beauty products, Bridget continued, and you already have the perfect formula. That was just for fun, I protested. I can't start a business. I don't have the money or experience or what? The right family name. Bridget's words hit home. Stop letting them live rent-free in your head. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed as we entered later that day. I needed caffeine to process Bridget's suggestion, but fate had other plans. Excuse me, a man in a sharp suit called out as I walked past his table. I couldn't help overhearing your conversation about natural skincare products. I froze, embarrassed that our excited chatter had disturbed someone. I'm so sorry if we were too loud. No. He stood, extending his hand. I'm Leonard. I work in business development, and I'm always looking for innovative ideas. Would you mind sharing more about your products? Before I could decline, Bridget jumped in. She'd love to. In fact, she has samples in her bag right now. I shot her a look, but she just grinned and pushed me toward the chair opposite Leonard. Reluctantly, I pulled out the small jar of face cream I always carried. Leonard examined the product, asking detailed questions about ingredients, production costs, and target market. His eyes lit up when I explained my commitment to sustainable packaging. You know, he said, sliding his business card across the table, I mentor startups in their early stages. Your idea has potential, but more importantly, You have something rare, passion, and authenticity. I stared at the card. Why would you want to help me? Because 15 years ago, someone took a chance on me when I was starting out. Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you. He smiled. Think about it. Call me if you're interested. After he left, Bridget practically bounced in her seat. This is it. The universe is literally throwing opportunities at you, or setting me up for another fall, I said. But I couldn't deny the spark of excitement in my chest. That night, I pulled out my old recipe journal. Pages of carefully documented formulations, customer feedback from friends, cost calculations. It was all there. I'd stopped when Easton's family made it clear they found my kitchen experiments embarrassing. The next morning, I called Leonard. 3 months later, I stood in my own small production space, surrounded by mixing equipment and natural ingredients. Leonard had helped me secure a small business loan and guided me through the licensing process. The space wasn't much, but it was mine. To Freeman Naturals, Bridget raised a glass of champagne as we celebrated the official opening. You did it, girl. We did it, I corrected her, including Leonard in my gesture. I couldn't have done this without either of you. Actually, you could have, Leonard said. You just needed to believe it was possible. Speaking of which, there's a trade show next month. Perfect opportunity to launch your brand. Isn't that the one where all the luxury beauty brands showcase? My stomach churned. I'm not ready for that. You're more ready than you think, he insisted. Success is the best revenge, Delilah. Trust me. As I looked around my small but growing business, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before Easton left. Pride. Pure, unfiltered pride in something I'd built with my own hands. Okay, I said, squaring my shoulders. Sign me up for the trade show. It's time to show the world what this common girl can do. Bridget hugged me tight. The Lynches won't know what hit them. No, I smiled, feeling stronger than I had in months. They won't. Your booth location is terrible, Leonard said, scanning the trade show floor plan. But we can work with it. I stood in the massive convention center, watching workers set up elaborate displays for major beauty brands. My modest booth felt like a rowboat among luxury yachts. Remember, Leonard continued, you're not just selling products, you're selling a story. Your story. A story about getting dumped by my rich husband? I quipped, arranging sample jars on our small counter. No, he said firmly, a story about a woman who created something authentic and beautiful from scratch. These big brands, they're all smoke and mirrors. You're the real deal. The first day of the show was overwhelming. Buyers and journalists rushed past our booth, drawn to the flashier displays. I felt my confidence wavering until a woman in her 60s stopped to try our sample face cream. This texture is divine, she said, closing her eyes as she applied it. And the scent, so subtle, so natural. It's all organic, I explained, warming to her genuine interest. The rose oil is sourced from a small family farm in Oregon. I'm Margaret from Bloom Beauty, she said. We have boutiques in several major cities. Would you be interested in discussing wholesale options? By afternoon, we had 3 potential retail partners and a growing crowd around our booth. People were drawn to the simplicity of our packaging and the authenticity of our approach. See? Leonard grinned. The truth sells itself. Then I heard a familiar voice that made my blood freeze. Well, if it isn't the kitchen chemist, Noelle drawled, sauntering up to our booth. She'd been Tiffany's favorite choice for Easton, the daughter of another wealthy family. How quaint. Can I help you try something? I asked professionally, though my hands shook slightly. Oh, I'm not here to buy, she smirked. I represent Luxe Beauty now. We're launching our new premium organic line next month. Just wanted to see what the competition was up to. I noticed her eyes scanning our display, lingering on our order book. Well, good luck with your launch, I said firmly. If you'll excuse me, I have customers waiting. After she left, Leonard squeezed my shoulder. Don't let her rattle you. She's worried, or she wouldn't have come over. The next day brought even more success. A popular beauty blogger raved about our night cream on social media, sending a flood of visitors to our booth. By closing time, we'd sold out of several products and had a waiting list for more. "We need to scale up production," Leonard said as we packed up. "And fast. I know some manufacturers who—" "No," I interrupted. "We're keeping production in-house. Quality control is everything." He smiled. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say, but you'll need a bigger facility, more staff." "Then that's what we'll do," I said, surprising myself with my certainty. "I won't compromise on quality, ever." The final day of the show, I arrived early to find a sophisticated woman waiting at our booth. She introduced herself as the beauty director of a major magazine. "Your brand has created quite a buzz," she said. "Would you be interested in being featured in our Rising Stars section?" As we discussed the details, I noticed Noelle watching from her luxurious booth across the aisle. Her expression sour. The magazine feature would come out just before Luxe Beauty's organic line launch. "Perfect timing," Leonard whispered after the beauty director left. "Sometimes karma works faster than expected." That evening, as we celebrated our success at a nearby restaurant, Leonard handed me an envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at an upcoming charity gala. "The theme is innovation and sustainability in beauty," he explained. "They want you to share your journey." I stared at the invitation, my heart racing when I saw the event details. The Lynch Foundation was one of the main sponsors. "You don't have to accept," Leonard said gently, reading my expression. "Yes, I do," I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. "It's time to show them exactly who I've become." Bridget raised her glass. "To facing our fears head on." "To karma," Leonard added with a knowing smile. I touched my glass to theirs, thinking about how far I'd come from that broken woman in Bridget's apartment. My small business was growing beyond my wildest dreams, and now I had a platform to tell my story, my real story. "To authenticity," I said, "and to never letting anyone make you feel small again." As we toasted, my phone buzzed with another order notification. Success, I was learning, truly was the sweetest revenge. "You're fidgeting again," Bridget said, adjusting my blazer in the mirror. The charity gala was 3 days away, and we were at my final fitting. "I'm not fidgeting," I protested, though my fingers wouldn't stop smoothing the silk fabric. "I'm just making sure everything's perfect. The dress is perfect. Your speech is perfect. You're perfect." She turned me to face her. "What's really bothering you?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another message from Leonard. "Just confirmed. Entire Lynch family RSVP'd, yes, including Easton." My stomach lurched. Maybe I should back out. "Like hell you will," Bridget snapped. "You've worked too hard for this moment." The boutique owner approached with a garment bag. "The alterations are complete, Ms. Freeman. Would you like to try it on one more time?" I shook my head, already feeling suffocated. "I need air." Outside, I leaned against the building, taking deep breaths. A familiar voice made me jump. "Delilah." I turned to see Ricardo, Easton's father, standing there in his usual impeccable suit. Of all the streets in the city. "Hello, Ricardo," I managed, straightening my spine. He looked older than I remembered, more gray at his temples. "I heard you're speaking at the gala." "That's right." I met his gaze steadily. "About my company's commitment to sustainable beauty." "Yes, well," he cleared his throat. "Tiffany and I were surprised to see your name on the program." "I bet you were." I couldn't help the edge in my voice. "Surprised that the waitress you dismissed built a successful company." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "About that, perhaps we were—" "Save it," I cut him off. "I have a fitting to finish." Back inside, Bridget took one look at my face and knew. "What happened?" "Just ran into Ricardo," I said, slipping into the dress. "He tried to apologize, or maybe he was going to warn me to stay away from the gala. I didn't stick around to find out." "Good," she said firmly. "You don't owe them anything." That evening, I buried myself in work at the office. reviewing production schedules and order fulfillment. A knock at the door startled me. "You're here late," Leonard said, walking in with takeout bags. "Thought you might need dinner and moral support." I grabbed a container of pad thai. "I ran into Ricardo today." "Ah." He sat down. And? "And nothing." I walked away. I pushed the noodles around. But seeing him brought everything back. The way they looked at me, like I was dirt on their shoes. "Good," Leonard said, surprising me. "Use that feeling. Channel it into your speech." "I don't want revenge anymore," I admitted. "I just want to prove them wrong." "That's exactly why you'll succeed." He pulled out his tablet. "Now, let's review your presentation one more time." The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. The magazine feature about Freeman Naturals hit newsstands, causing our online orders to explode. I barely had time to think about the gala until the morning of. "The car's here," Bridget called through my bedroom door. "Are you ready?" I stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked confident, successful. No trace of the heartbroken girl who'd fled her apartment a year ago. "Almost," I called back, reaching for my grandmother's necklace, the only family heirloom I had. As I fastened it, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I heard you're speaking tonight. We need to talk. Easton." My hands shook as I deleted the message without responding. "Delilah," Bridget poked her head in. "You okay?" "Easton just texted." I showed her my phone. "He wants to talk." "Of course he does," she scoffed. "Now that you're successful, now that you're speaking at their precious charity event, don't let him get in your head." She was right. I grabbed my clutch and speech notes. Let's go show them what they missed out on. In the car, Leonard called to review last-minute details. "Remember, you're on right after Noelle from Luxe Beauty. Don't let her presentation rattle you." "I won't," I promised, watching the city lights blur past. I'm done letting any of them affect me. But as we pulled up to the Grand Hotel, seeing the Lynch Foundation banner hanging above the entrance, my heart raced. Somewhere inside, my past and present were about to collide. "Ready?" Bridget squeezed my hand. I took a deep breath, thinking of how far I'd come. "Ready." The ballroom buzzed with the city's elite, champagne glasses clinking, and diamonds glittering under crystal chandeliers. I spotted Tiffany holding court near the stage, wearing her signature pearls and condescending smile. "Deep breaths," Bridget whispered, steering me toward our assigned table. "You're not that girl anymore," Leonard intercepted us, tablet in hand. "Change of plans. They've moved you up in the speaking order. You're now before Noelle, not after." "What? Why?" "Because," a silky voice interrupted. I requested it. Noelle appeared, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my first month's rent. "I prefer to close the show. The schedule was set weeks ago," Leonard argued. Noelle's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Things change. By the way, Delilah, have you said hello to Easton yet? He's been asking about you." My comeback was cut short by the event coordinator calling speakers for a final briefing. As I walked away, I heard Noelle's theatrical whisper, "Poor thing. She still looks so provincial." The speaker's preparation room was mercifully empty. I reviewed my notes, trying to ignore the muffled sounds of the gathering crowd. The door opened, and my heart stopped. "Delilah." Easton stood there, more gray in his hair than I remembered, looking uncertain in a way that once would have made me want to comfort him. "Don't," I said, gathering my papers. "Whatever you're going to say, just don't." "You look amazing," he pressed on. "I've been following your success, the magazine feature. Funny how my success suddenly makes me worth talking to." I moved toward the door, but he blocked my path. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I let my family—" "No," I met his eyes. "You didn't let them do anything. You chose them. Own your choice." "Ms. Freeman," the coordinator poked her head in. "You're on in 5 minutes." I pushed past Easton, but his next words froze me. "I miss you." Turning slowly, I laughed, a sharp cold sound that surprised us both. "You miss me? Now that I'm successful, now that I've proven I'm not just some waitress. How convenient." His face flushed. That's not fair. Fair. I stepped closer. Was it fair when your mother called me common? When your father suggested I was a gold digger? When you stood there and said nothing? The coordinator appeared again, more urgently this time. I straightened my spine and walked past Easton without another glance. In the hallway, I nearly collided with Tiffany. She wore the same perfume that used to fill their mansion, the one that had always given me a headache. "Delilah, darling," she cooed, as if we were old friends. "I must say, your little business venture is quite impressive for someone of your background." "Thank you, Tiffany," I smiled sweetly. "It's amazing what someone of my background can achieve without riding on their family's coattails." Her face tightened, but before she could respond, I was being ushered toward the stage. Through the curtain, I could see Noelle in the front row, smirking. The Lynches sat at their reserved table, Easton's empty chair between his parents. And now, the host announced, speaking about sustainable innovation in beauty, "Please welcome the founder and CEO of Freeman Naturals, Delilah Freeman." The spotlight hit me as I walked out, my heels clicking against the hardwood stage. From the corner of my eye, I saw Easton slip back into his seat. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "A year ago, I was told I wasn't good enough, that my background made me unworthy of certain circles." The Lynch table shifted uncomfortably. Tiffany's pearls gleamed as she lifted her chin defiantly. "But here's what I learned," I continued, gaining strength. "Success isn't about where you come from. It's about authenticity, determination, and staying true to your values." I launched into my presentation about sustainable beauty practices, but I could feel the undercurrent of my words hitting their mark. Every achievement I mentioned was a subtle reminder of what they'd dismissed. Noelle's smile had turned brittle. Easton couldn't take his eyes off me. And Tiffany. Tiffany looked like she'd swallowed something sour. As I concluded, the applause was thunderous. Leonard gave me a subtle thumbs up from his table. Bridget was beaming. "Thank you," I said into the microphone, then added with a pointed look at the Lynch table, "Sometimes rejection is just redirection to something better." Walking off stage, I felt lighter than I had in months. I'd faced my past and emerged stronger. The night wasn't over, but I'd already won. The applause had barely died down when Noelle took the stage, her voice syrupy sweet as she began her presentation. I slipped into the back of the ballroom, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of my full attention. "Quite a speech." Leonard appeared beside me, offering a glass of champagne. "But the real show's about to begin." "What do you mean?" He nodded toward Noelle, who was unveiling Luxe Beauty's new organic line. "Watch carefully." As Noelle described their product's revolutionary natural formulation, something familiar caught my eye. The ingredient list she was displaying looked eerily similar to mine. "Is that?" I started. "Your formula?" "With minor tweaks, yes." Leonard's expression was grim. "She must have copied it during the trade show, when she was hovering around our booth." My hands clenched around my champagne glass. "That's illegal." "Precisely." He pulled out his phone, showing me photos he'd taken of my original formula documentation. "I had a feeling something like this might happen. That's why I insisted on patenting your formulations months ago." The room erupted in gasps as Noelle's presentation suddenly cut out, replaced by a legal notice on the screen behind her. "Ms. Simmons," a man in a suit approached the stage. "I represent Freeman Naturals' legal team. We need to discuss your company's patent infringement immediately." Noelle's perfectly composed facade cracked. "This is ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about. The formulation you're presenting," he continued loudly, "is protected under patent number 789324, registered to Freeman Naturals 6 months ago." The ballroom erupted in whispers. I saw Tiffany frantically whispering to Ricardo, while Easton sat frozen, staring at Noelle with dawning comprehension. "You knew," I said to Leonard. "You knew she'd try this." "I suspected. Companies like Luxe Beauty don't innovate, they appropriate. But we were ready." Noelle stormed off the stage, her face red with fury. She made a beeline for me, but security intercepted her halfway. "You planned this," she hissed as they escorted her out. "You set me up." "No," I called after her. "You did that all by yourself." The event coordinator quickly tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Journalists who'd come to cover a charity gala now had a much juicier story. "Delilah," Bridget rushed over. "Have you seen your phone? The story's already breaking on social media. Luxe Beauty's stock is dropping." Before I could respond, Tiffany appeared before me, her face tight with barely controlled rage. "You've made your point. Are you happy now? Destroying reputations." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly. "Your friend tried to steal my work. The truth just caught up with her." "The truth?" she scoffed. "The truth is, you'll never belong in this world, no matter how successful you become." "Mother, stop." Easton's voice cut through the tension. He'd approached without me noticing. "Haven't you done enough?" Tiffany recoiled, as if slapped. "Easton, surely you can't be defending her." "I should have defended her a year ago." He turned to me. "Delilah, I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. I was a coward." "Yes," I agreed. "You were." Ricardo joined us, looking older than ever. Perhaps we all were wrong about you, Delilah." "Perhaps?" I laughed softly. "You know what the difference is between you and me. I never needed your approval. I just needed to believe in myself." A reporter approached, notebook in hand. "Ms. Freeman, could we get a statement about the patent infringement?" "Of course," I smiled. Turning away from the Lynches, "I believe in protecting innovation and authentic creation. That's what Freeman Naturals stands for." As I spoke with the reporter, I could feel Easton's eyes on me. But it didn't matter anymore. The butterflies in my stomach were gone, replaced by a steady certainty. Leonard touched my elbow. "Ready to get out of here? We have an early meeting tomorrow with 3 major retailers who just canceled their Luxe Beauty orders." "Actually," I said, "I'd like to stay a bit longer. This is turning out to be quite an entertaining evening." Bridget linked her arm through mine. "That's my girl. Besides, you haven't even touched the dessert buffet yet." As we walked away, I heard Tiffany's sharp intake of breath, probably shocked that I wasn't skulking away in shame. But I had nothing to be ashamed of. Every step I'd taken, every success I'd achieved, had been earned through hard work and integrity. The night wasn't turning out anything like I'd expected. It was turning out better. The morning after the gala, my office was flooded with calls and emails. News of Noelle's patent infringement had spread like wildfire through the beauty industry. "Your inbox is exploding," Bridget announced, bursting into my office with coffee. 3 major department stores want to carry our line, and that magazine wants a follow-up interview. I barely had time to respond before Leonard walked in, looking unusually serious. "We need to talk. Luxe Beauty's lawyers are here." My stomach dropped, but I straightened my spine and nodded. "Send them in." 2 stern-faced attorneys entered, followed by Noelle herself. She looked nothing like the polished socialite from last night. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her designer outfit slightly wrinkled. "Let's make this quick," one lawyer began. "We're prepared to offer a settlement." "No," I interrupted. "No settlements." Noelle leaned forward. "Be reasonable, Delilah. Name your price." "My price?" I stood up slowly. "You tried to steal something I built from nothing, something I created while you and your friends were mocking me for being common." "I admit I made a mistake," she said, her voice cracking. "But this scandal is destroying my family's company. Please." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was Noelle, begging the woman she'd looked down on for so long. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, surprising myself with my calm tone. "You're going to publicly admit what you did. You're going to apologize to your customers for trying to sell them stolen formulations. And you're going to step down from your position." "That's outrageous," one lawyer protested. "No," Noelle whispered. "She's right." Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. "I was jealous," she continued. "You built something real, while I was just trading on my family name. I thought I could take a shortcut." Leonard cleared his throat. "We'll have our lawyers draft the agreement. You'll make the announcement by end of day." After they left, Bridget hugged me tight. That was amazing. But why didn't you take their money? Because this was never about money, I replied. It was about truth. My phone buzzed, Easton calling again. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. Please, just 5 minutes, I'm in the lobby. Don't, Bridget warned, reading over my shoulder. I have to, I said. For closure. I found Easton pacing by the reception desk, looking as unsettled as I'd ever seen him. Make it quick, I said. I have a company to run. I left her, he blurted out. I told my parents I'm done letting them control my life. Seeing you last night, seeing what you've achieved, I realized what a fool I've been. Took you long enough. I know it's too late. He stepped closer. But I never stopped loving you. A year ago, those words would have melted my heart. Now they just made me tired. You're right about one thing, I said. It is too late, way too late. We could try again, he pleaded. I'm different now. But I'm different too, I replied. And that's the problem. I've outgrown you, Easton. I've outgrown all of it. The elevator dinged, and Leonard stepped out. Delilah, the press is waiting in the conference room. I have to go, I told Easton. Good luck with your journey of self-discovery. Is that really it? He called after me. All those years together mean nothing. I turned back one last time. They meant everything. That's why it hurt so much when you threw them away. But now they're just part of my origin story. In the conference room, journalists waited with cameras and recorders. Leonard handed me a statement to review, but I set it aside. Just speak from the heart, he advised. That's what got you here. I took my place at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. A year ago, I would have been terrified. Now I felt only strength. Good morning, I began. Today isn't about patent infringement or corporate scandal. It's about authenticity, about standing up for what you've built. As I spoke, I caught my reflection in the window. Confident, powerful, free. The woman I'd become wasn't defined by the Lynches or their rejection. She was defined by her own choices, her own strength. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all. The autumn breeze carried the scent of success as I cut the ribbon at our new Freeman Naturals headquarters. Camera flashes popped while Bridget wiped away happy tears beside me. And with this, I addressed the crowd. We launch our global sustainability initiative, making clean beauty accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. The applause was interrupted by a familiar voice. Excuse me, may I say something? Tiffany stood at the edge of the crowd, looking smaller somehow, without her usual entourage. The audience parted as she walked forward. Mrs. Lynch, I acknowledged, keeping my voice neutral. This is unexpected. She cleared her throat, clutching her designer purse like a shield. I came to make amends, publicly. The journalists' cameras whirred to life. Leonard moved protectively closer to me, but I held up my hand. Go on, I said. I was wrong about you. Tiffany's voice carried across the suddenly silent gathering. My prejudice and pride cost my son his happiness, and our family its integrity. While you were building something meaningful, we were clinging to outdated notions of worth. Why now? I asked, genuinely curious. Because yesterday, my granddaughter asked me why we treat some people differently than others. Her voice cracked. I couldn't give her an answer that didn't make me ashamed. The crowd murmured. I stepped down from the podium, approaching her. I don't expect forgiveness, she continued. But I want you to know that you've taught our entire social circle a valuable lesson. Success isn't inherited, it's earned. Thank you, I said simply. Would you like a tour of the facility? Her eyes widened in surprise. You'd allow that? Of course, our doors are open to everyone. That's the whole point. As we walked through the production floor, I showed her how we sourced sustainable ingredients, employed local workers, and maintained strict quality controls. This is remarkable, she admitted, watching our team at work. Ricardo and we've been doing a lot of thinking. We'd like to establish a scholarship fund for aspiring entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. Would you consider being on the selection committee? I stopped walking. Are you serious? Entirely, Who better to spot genuine talent and determination? Before I could respond, Bridget rushed up with her tablet. Delilah, you need to see this. Noelle just posted her public apology, and it's going viral. The video showed Noelle, humble and sincere, taking full responsibility for the patent infringement. But it was her closing words that caught my attention. Delilah Freeman showed me that true success comes from innovation, not imitation. Her forgiveness in allowing me to make this right speaks volumes about her character, the character I once foolishly dismissed. Well, I smiled at Tiffany. It seems today is full of surprises. Life has a way of humbling us all, she replied softly. Leonard appeared with contracts in hand. The European distribution deals are ready for your signature, and that sustainable packaging manufacturer in Sweden is on the line. Actually, I said, I think we should discuss involving the Lynch Foundation in our global initiative. Their connections could help us reach more communities. Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. After everything we did, the past is the past, I said firmly. What matters is what we do now. The day ended with an impromptu strategy session in my office. Bridget ordered takeout, while Leonard and I brainstormed with Tiffany about combining our resources for greater impact. As the sun set over the city, I stepped out onto my office balcony. The neon signs were blinking to life, including the massive Freeman Naturals logo atop our building. Quite a view. Bridget joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. Did you ever imagine this when you were crying on my couch? Never, I laughed. But you know what's funny? I'm actually grateful for everything that happened. Even the heartbreak? Especially the heartbreak. It showed me who I really am. My phone buzzed with a text from Easton. Congratulations on the new headquarters. You deserve every success. I truly hope you're happy. This time, I replied, I am. I hope you find your happiness too. Bridget read the exchange over my shoulder. Look at you, all zen and mature. Not zen, I corrected her, just complete. Below us, the city pulsed with energy and possibility. I thought about the girl who once felt so small in this big world, who let others define her worth. She seemed like a stranger now. To new beginnings, Bridget raised her glass. No, I smiled, clinking my glass against hers, to being exactly who we're meant to be. The night air carried the promise of more adventures, more challenges, more triumphs. But this time, I was ready for them all.
The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as my mother-in-law Helen raised her glass for what felt like the 100th toast of the evening. The Montgomery family never did anything small, especially celebrations. To our dearest Denise, Helen's voice rang across their sprawling living room, whose promotion to senior financial controller proves that when one of us succeeds, the whole family succeeds. I forced a smile, catching my best friend Olive's knowing eye roll from across the room. She'd been warning me for years about how suffocating the Montgomerys could be, but I'd always defended them. After all, what family wouldn't be proud of their daughter-in-law landing a 6-figure position at one of the city's top firms? My husband Damien squeezed my shoulder. You deserve this, honey. We're all so proud. The party was extravagant. Catered appetizers, premium champagne, even a custom cake with "Congratulations, Denise" written in perfect gold script. I should have felt on top of the world, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way Helen kept emphasizing family success, or how Damien's sister Natalia's smile never quite reached her eyes. Speech, Kenneth, my father-in-law called out. Let's hear from the woman of the hour. I smoothed my black cocktail dress and stood. I'm not great at speeches, but thank you all for this incredible party. I'm touched by your support and... Oh, darling, Helen interrupted. You're being modest. Tell everyone about the wonderful opportunities this means for our family's future. Before I could respond, a sharp cry pierced the air. Everyone turned toward the sound. Sorry, Natalia jumped up. That's just the baby monitor. Must have knocked it on while setting up. I'll grab it. I've got it, I said quickly, spotting the small device on the side table. I'm headed to the powder room anyway. I slipped the monitor into my purse, intending to return it later. As I made my way down the hallway, Olive caught up with me. "You okay? You seem tense." "Just overwhelmed. Helen's being—" "Helen?" Olive snorted. "You mean overbearing and controlling. I saw her reorganizing your desk in your home office last week when you were in the kitchen. She means well," I said automatically, though my stomach twisted. "She just wants to be involved." "There's involved, and then there's whatever this is." Olive gestured around at the party. "Did you even want this celebration?" Before I could answer, Natalia appeared. "Denise, Mum needs you in the kitchen. Something about the cake serving." In the kitchen, Helen and Aunt Jasmine were huddled near the sink, speaking in hushed tones. They straightened up when I entered. "There you are!" Helen beamed. "We were just saying how rewarding it is to support your career for everyone's sake." Something in her tone made me pause. The way Jasmine wouldn't meet my eyes. The slight emphasis on everyone's. "What do you mean by that?" "Oh, you know," Helen waved dismissively. "Family takes care of family. Now, about the cake." Later, as guests began filtering out, I helped clear glasses from the living room. My purse sat forgotten on a chair, the baby monitor inside still switched on. As I reached for it, voices drifted through the speaker, coming from Kenneth's study upstairs. Too focused on her career to notice. I froze, Helen's voice crystal clear through the device. "Diverting her paychecks to our family fund." My heart stopped. That was Damien's voice. My husband's voice. "She trusts me completely," he continued, laughing. "Signs whatever I put in front of her." The crystal glass in my hand nearly slipped. I caught it, my knuckles white against the stem. 6 years of marriage. 6 years of thinking I'd finally found a family who supported my ambitions, who celebrated my success. "Denise?" Olive's voice made me jump. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I clicked off the monitor and slipped it into my pocket, plastering on a smile that felt like it might crack my face. Just tired. Big day. But as I watched Damien laugh with his parents across the room, something cold and hard settled in my chest. They thought I was too focused on my career to notice? Well, they were about to learn exactly how focused I could be. I hugged Olive goodbye, already planning my next move. "Thanks for coming. I have a feeling I'm going to need your legal expertise soon." She raised an eyebrow, but I just smiled. The party might be ending, but something else was just beginning. I waited until Damien's breathing deepened into sleep before slipping out of bed. The baby monitor felt heavy in my pocket as I crept downstairs to the kitchen. Helen had insisted we stay the night after the party, claiming we'd had too much champagne to drive. Now I wondered if there was another reason. My hand shook as I pulled out the device. Part of me hoped I'd imagined what I'd heard earlier, that it was just party stress playing tricks on my mind. I pressed play on the recorded conversation. "She's been so distracted with this promotion," Helen's voice crackled through the speaker. "It's perfect timing, really." "The new salary bump will help cover Kenneth's debts," Damien replied. "And that investment property Natalia's been eyeing." "Speaking of properties," Kenneth's gruff voice joined in, "that joint account paperwork you had her sign last month? Brilliant move, son." My stomach lurched. Last month's paperwork. Damien had caught me rushing between meetings, thrust a stack of documents in my face. "Just some account updates, honey. You know how the bank is with their endless forms." "How much have we managed to divert so far?" Natalia asked. "Nearly 200,000, Helen said proudly. "Our little financial controller never even noticed. Too busy climbing the corporate ladder." The mug I was holding slipped from my fingers, clattering into the sink. I barely caught it before it could shatter and wake everyone. "What are you doing up?" I spun around to find Jasmine in the doorway, wrapped in a floral robe. I clicked off the monitor and slipped it behind the coffee maker. "Couldn't sleep. Too much excitement, I guess." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Quite a celebration Helen threw you. She's always been passionate about family affairs. Seems like the whole family is passionate about affairs, I muttered before I could stop myself. Jasmine's expression flickered. What do you mean by that? Nothing, just tired. I forced a yawn. Think I'll head back up. Denise? She caught my arm as I passed. Family can be complicated. Sometimes what looks like betrayal is just protection. I pulled away, my skin crawling. Did she know? Was she part of it too? Back in the guest room, I lay rigid beside Damien, my mind racing. $200,000. All those times he'd insisted on handling our finances because I was too busy. The joint accounts I'd barely looked at. The investment discussions I'd missed because of work meetings. My phone buzzed with a text from Olive. You okay? You seemed off at the party. Call me. I typed back, need your help. But not here. Meet tomorrow? Bring your lawyer brain. The response was immediate. My office, 9 a.m, what's going on? Before I could reply, Damien stirred. Babe? Why are you up? Just checking work emails, I lied smoothly. Big presentation next week. He chuckled, pulling me close. Always working. That's my girl. His kiss on my temple felt like acid. You know, Mum was thinking we should have a family meeting tomorrow about the promotion and future planning. Future planning? You know, investments, shared goals, family stuff. His hand rubbed my back in what used to feel comforting. Now it made my skin crawl. There's this opportunity Kenneth heard about. Sounds great. I forced myself to sound eager. But I have meetings all day tomorrow. Rain check. The family's counting on you being there, he pressed. Can't you reschedule? I sat up, finally trusting myself to look at him in the dim light. My husband of 6 years. The man I'd trusted with everything. Actually, you're right. Family should come first. I'll move some things around. His relief was palpable. That's my girl. Mum will be so pleased. I lay back down, letting him pull me against his chest while my mind raced. Let them have their family meeting. Let them think I was still their naive, career-obsessed cash cow. But first, I needed proof. As Damien's breathing evened out again, I carefully reached for my phone. To Olive. Change of plans. Need you to look into something first. How fast can you get bank records? Her reply came seconds later. How far back? I thought about Helen's smug voice. $200,000, 6 years of lies. All of it, I typed back. Every last penny. Tomorrow, they'd see the dutiful daughter-in-law they expected. But today, I was going to become the financial controller they never bargained for. I closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to plan. They thought I was too focused on my career to notice. They were about to learn that attention to detail was exactly what I did best. You've got to be kidding me. Brian pushed his glasses up his nose, staring at the stack of bank statements spread across his desk. They've been siphoning money through 7 different accounts. I'd called in every favour I had to get Brian, my old college friend and now forensic accountant, to see me on such short notice. His downtown office felt safer than meeting at Olive's law firm, where Natalia's best friend worked as a paralegal. Look at this pattern, he pointed to a series of transactions. Every time you got a bonus or raise, there's a matching transfer to this account in Helen's name. They didn't even try to hide it well. They didn't think they had to, I said, my voice tight. Show me everything. Brian pulled up a digital spreadsheet. Regular transfers to Kenneth's account, labelled as household expenses, way more than your actual bills. Investment accounts in Damien's name that you supposedly authorised. even a vacation property down payment. The beach house, my hands clenched, the one Helen said was a family inheritance. Bought with your money 3 months ago. He hesitated. There's more. Someone's been taking out loans in your name. The room spun. What? Through Jasmine's credit union. 3 so far, all with your electronic signature. A knock at the door made us both jump. Olive slipped in, looking grim. Sorry, I'm late. Had to dodge Natalia in the courthouse lobby. She took in my face. What did I miss? Show her, I said to Brian. While he walked Olive through the evidence, I checked my phone. 5 missed calls from Damien. 3 from Helen. A text from Natalia. Where are you? Everyone's waiting. The family meeting. I'd forgotten all about it. They're going to notice something's wrong soon, Olive warned, looking up from the documents. We need to move fast. Already on it. Brian turned his laptop around. I've flagged suspicious transactions, documented the fraud patterns, and started tracing where the money went. But Denise, this is serious criminal stuff. We should contact the authorities. My phone buzzed again. Damien. Honey, Mum's really upset. Please come home. We need to discuss something important. Not yet, I said. I need to know exactly what they're planning first. At least let me file an emergency injunction, Olive pleaded. Freeze the accounts before they can move more money. If we do that, they'll know I'm onto them. I need them to think I'm still in the dark. I stood up, straightening my blazer. Besides, I have a family meeting to attend. Denise! Olive's voice was worried. Trust me. I gathered my purse. Brian, how fast can you get me a complete forensic report? Give me 48 hours, but be careful. People who steal from family can be dangerous when cornered. I thought about Helen's calculating smile, Damien's practiced lies, the way they'd all laughed about deceiving me. I'm counting on it. The drive home gave me time to compose myself. I pulled into the driveway just as Natalia stormed out the front door. Finally! Where have you been? Mum's been calling for hours. Sorry, work emergency. I followed her inside where the family sat around the dining room table. Helen's face was tear-stained, Kenneth looked grave, and Damien jumped up to hug me. Baby, thank God. We've been so worried. What's going on? I asked, letting just the right amount of concern colour my voice. Helen dabbed her eyes. It's your father-in-law. The doctors found something. The treatments. We need your help, Denise. I watched Kenneth bow his head, playing his part perfectly. Watched Damien squeeze my hand, his wedding ring suddenly feeling like a brand on my skin. Of course, I said softly. Whatever the family needs. How much are we talking about? The specialist wants 50,000 up front, Helen said. I know it's a lot, but with your new promotion, we've all sacrificed so much for each other, Damien added. This is what family does. I thought about Brian's spreadsheet, about the beach house bought with my stolen money, about the loans taken out in my name. You're right, I said, meeting Helen's eyes. Family sacrifices for each other. Give me until tomorrow to arrange the transfer. I want to do this right. The relief in the room was palpable. Helen hugged me, her perfume suffocating. We knew we could count on you, dear. My phone vibrated. A text from Brian. Found something big. Natalia's been skimming extra. They don't know. I hugged Helen back, smiling over her shoulder at my husband. After all, I said, what's family for? Tomorrow, they'd learn exactly what family was for. But tonight, I had some transfers of my own to arrange. You're telling me Natalia's been running her own scam? I stared at Brian's laptop screen in disbelief. We were meeting in a quiet coffee shop this time, far from both our offices. Look at these transactions. He pointed to a series of transfers. Every time money went into the family fund, a portion disappeared into an offshore account. one that only Natalia can access. How much? Nearly 50,000. She's been stealing from the people stealing from you. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Honor among thieves? There's more. Brian lowered his voice. That medical emergency they're using to pressure you? Kenneth's been to exactly one doctor this year for a routine physical. My phone lit up with Damien's face. I declined the call, adding it to the growing list of ignored messages. He'd been extra attentive since yesterday's family meeting, bringing me breakfast in bed, offering to massage my shoulders while I arranged the transfer. Have you signed anything recently? Brian asked. Any documents at all? No. My voice trailed off as I remembered. Wait, last night, Damien asked me to sign a birthday card for his cousin. Said he was in a rush to mail it. Brian's face darkened. Show me. I pulled up a photo I'd taken of the envelope before signing. Brian examined it, then swore under his breath. This isn't a card envelope. It's sized for legal documents. They're still trying to get your signature on something. My phone buzzed again. Helen this time. Darling, we need to finalize everything today. Kenneth's appointment is tomorrow morning. They're getting desperate, I said. Good. Denise. Brian closed his laptop. These people aren't just thieves. They're professional con artists. You need to be careful. I am being careful. That's why I'm meeting Olive at the bank in an hour to... Denise? My blood froze. Natalia stood by our table, designer handbag clutched tight. I thought you were homesick. That's what Damien told Mum. I glanced at Brian's laptop, now thankfully closed. Just getting some fresh air and coffee with an old friend. Her eyes narrowed at Brian. Does Damien know you're meeting strange men for coffee? Brian's an accountant, I said smoothly, helping me understand some tax implications of my promotion. Speaking of which, how's that property investment you were looking at? Something flickered in her expression. What property? The one you mentioned at my party. Unless... I widened my eyes innocently. Was that supposed to be a surprise? I should go. She backed away, already pulling out her phone. Feel better, Denise. The moment she left, I grabbed my things. She's calling them right now. Go, Brian said. I'll get everything to Olive. Just watch your back. I made it to the bank just as Olive arrived, looking worried. Natalia called Damien. He's on his way here. Perfect. I straightened my jacket. Let's do this fast. Inside, I approached the manager's desk with my most professional smile. Hi, I need to discuss some irregularities with my accounts. 20 minutes later, Damien burst in, Helen and Kenneth right behind him. They froze when they saw Olive in her lawyer suit, documents spread across the manager's desk. Honey? Damien's voice wavered. What's going on? Just reviewing some interesting transactions. I kept my voice light. Care to explain why my salary's been going to accounts I never authorized? Denise. Helen stepped forward, tears already forming. You don't understand. Kenneth's condition is non-existent. I slid Brian's report across the desk. Just like the family fund. Just like your beach house inheritance. Whatever you think you found, Kenneth started, but Olive cut him off. My client has comprehensive documentation of systematic fraud, unauthorized accounts, and forged signatures. She's prepared to press charges unless certain conditions are met. Damien reached for my hand. I pulled away. Baby, please. We can explain everything. Explain what? I met his eyes. How you've stolen over $200,000 from me. How you forged my signature, or maybe... I turned to Natalia, who had just rushed in. How about you explain your private offshore account? The colour drained from her face. Helen whirled on her daughter. What is she talking about? I don't. Natalia's voice cracked. Mum, she's lying. Actually, Olive interjected, We have proof of everything, including the loans taken out in Denise's name through Aunt Jasmine's credit union. The manager cleared his throat. Should I contact the authorities? That depends. I stood up, facing my husband and his family. Are you ready to talk about paying everything back? Or should we let the police handle this family emergency? The silence that followed was deafening. In it, I could hear everything crumbling. My marriage, their schemes, the web of lies they'd spun so carefully. And honestly, the sound was beautiful. The loans were Helen's idea. Jasmine's voice crackled through my phone speaker. After the bank confrontation, she'd called me in a panic. She said you'd never notice that Damien had everything under control. I sat in Olive's office, speakerphone on, recording everything. And you just went along with it. They promised me a cut, said it was just temporary, that once Kenneth's investments paid off. She broke down sobbing. Helen's my sister. I trusted her. Like I trusted my husband? My voice could have frozen hell. How many other loans are there, Jasmine? Silence. Jasmine? 2 more, she whispered. Approved last week. Helen said it was urgent. Olive scribbled something on her legal pad and slid it across the desk. She's lying. Bank shows 4 new loans. I want copies of everything, I said into the phone, in every document, every email, every text, or you'll be the first one I press charges against. You can't! I'll lose my job at the credit union. Should have thought about that before committing fraud. After she hung up, Olive leaned back. That's 3 family members turning on each other. Helen's empire is crumbling. Speaking of Helen, I pulled up my messages. Dozens from her, each more desperate than the last. The latest caught my eye. We need to talk. Alone. Come to the house tonight. Don't, Olive warned. It's a trap. Of course it is. I grabbed my coat. That's why you're coming with me. The drive to Helen's house was tense. When we pulled up, I noticed Damien's car in the driveway. Remember, Olive said, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything and keep recording. Helen opened the door before we could knock. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her red-rimmed eyes. Denise, thank God. Who's this? My lawyer, I pushed past her. Where's Damien? Here. He emerged from Kenneth's study, looking haggard. Baby, please. Can we talk privately? Nothing's private anymore. I entered the study, where Kenneth sat slumped at his desk. Where's Natalia? Gone, Helen spat. Took off after your little bank ambush. Won't answer her phone. Probably busy moving money from her offshore account. Kenneth's head snapped up. What offshore account? The one she's been filling with money stolen from your stolen money. I pulled out Brian's report. Want to see the transactions? This is ridiculous. Helen stepped forward. We're family. We can work this out without lawyers and accusations. Family? I laughed. Is that what you call people you steal from? We didn't steal, Damien protested. We were investing, building a future. With my money? Without my knowledge? You were too busy with your career to handle the finances properly, Helen said. We were protecting you. By forging my signature? By taking out fraudulent loans? That was, Helen faltered. We needed emergency funds. For what? Kenneth's fake medical condition? The beach house? Or Natalia's shopping sprees? Silence fell. Kenneth looked at his wife. What beach house? Not now, dear. Helen's voice sharpened. Denise, be reasonable. If you press charges, it'll ruin everyone, including yourself. Think of the scandal, your career. My career. I stepped closer. The one you said made me too busy to notice you robbing me blind. That career. Please, Damien reached for me. We can fix this. Together. I love you. I pulled away. You love my paycheck. Enough! Helen slammed her hand on the desk. What do you want? Money? We'll pay you back. Just stop this madness. Oh, you'll pay me back. I nodded to Olive, who pulled out a document. Every penny plus interest, and you'll sign confessions detailing exactly what you did. Or what? Helen's eyes narrowed. Or I send this evidence to the police, the credit union board, and your country club committee. How's that for family loyalty? Kenneth grabbed the document, scanning it. Helen, how much did you actually take? Don't sign anything, she snapped, but he was already reading, his face growing paler. 200,000? The beach house? Natalia's account? He looked up at his wife. What have you done? What? I had to, Helen screamed. To keep this family afloat, to give our children the life they deserve. Children like Natalia, who stole from you too? I pulled out my phone, showing them the transfer records. Face it, Helen. Your perfect family is a house of cards, and it's falling down. Damien sank into a chair, head in his hands. Dad's medical emergency. Was that even real? Ask your mother, I said coldly. She seems to be the expert on family emergencies. The study door burst open. Natalia stood there, mascara streaked down her face. Mum, the bank just called. They're freezing all our accounts. I smiled. Now, that's what I call a family emergency. The foreclosure notice is real this time. Kenneth slapped a stack of papers onto the dining room table. 3 days had passed since the bank confrontation, and Helen had summoned everyone for another emergency family meeting. No more lies, Helen. We're losing the house. That's impossible. Helen's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her coffee cup. What about the investment returns you promised? There were no returns, Kenneth's voice cracked. I lost everything in the market crash. The money we took from Denise was keeping us afloat. I sat silently, watching their world unravel. Olive had advised against attending this meeting, but I needed to see this. We still have the beach house, Natalia suggested weakly. The beach house we bought with stolen money? Damien snapped. Great plan, sis. Maybe we can sell it to pay for our legal defense. Don't you dare blame me, Natalia shot back. At least I didn't steal from my own wife. No, you just stole from all of us, Helen's voice dripped venom. Your own family. Enough. Kenneth slammed his hand down. Denise, please. There must be something we can work out. I pulled out a manila envelope. Funny you should mention that. What's that? Helen's eyes narrowed. Everything. I spread the contents across the table. Bank statements, transfer records, loan documents, forged signatures, even emails discussing your little schemes. Damien reached for the papers, but I pulled them back. The originals are with my lawyer and the police. You called the police? Helen went pale. Not yet, but I will, unless you all sign these. I produced another set of documents. Full confession, complete repayment plan, and a restraining order keeping you away from me and my finances. This is extortion, Helen hissed. No, this is karma. I met her eyes. You have 1 hour to decide. Sign or I press charges. We don't have the money to pay you back, Natalia wailed. The beach house sells first, I said coldly. Then Helen's precious jewellery collection, Kenneth's golf club membership, your designer wardrobe, Natalia, everything. And what about me? Damien's voice was quiet. Where do I fit in your revenge plan? I finally looked at my husband, the man I'd trusted, the man I'd loved. Divorce papers are in there too. You get nothing. Baby, please, don't baby me. I stood up. You watched them steal from me for years. You helped them do it. What kind of husband does that? The kind raised by wolves. Jasmine's voice cut through the room. She stood in the doorway, clutching her own stack of papers. I brought what you asked for, Denise. every loan document, every email, even the ones Helen doesn't know about. Jasmine? Helen jumped up. What are you doing? Saving myself. Jasmine dropped the papers on the table. The credit union's investigating. I'm not going down for your schemes anymore. The room erupted into chaos. Helen screamed at Jasmine. Natalia burst into tears. Kenneth stared at the foreclosure notice like it might change if he looked hard enough. 1 hour, I repeated, heading for the door. Sign everything, or I call the police. Wait! Damien followed me onto the porch. What happened to us? To our love? Love? I turned to face him. Love doesn't steal $200,000. Love doesn't forge signatures. Love doesn't laugh about deceiving their partner. I can change. You can sign the papers. I stepped back. That's all you can do now. Back in my car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. Olive checking in. They're turning on each other, I texted. Just like you predicted. Coming over with wine, she replied. You'll need it when the signatures start rolling in. I looked back at the house. Through the window, I could see Helen gesturing wildly, Jasmine shouting back, Natalia sobbing into her hands. The perfect family shattering like glass. My phone buzzed again. Brian, this time. Bank confirms accounts frozen. They're trapped. One last text came through from Damien. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to make my family happy. I typed back 4 words. You succeeded. They're thrilled. Then I blocked his number, started my car, and drove away from the house I'd once thought would be my forever home. They had 1 hour to sign their confessions, to admit their crimes, to face the consequences of their actions. And if they didn't, well, I had a police detective's number ready to dial, and 6 years of evidence to share. Let them try to talk their way out of that family emergency. 58 minutes. That's how long it took for my phone to ring. They're signing, Jasmine's voice trembled. But Helen, she's not herself. You need to come back. I glanced at Olive, who was already grabbing her keys. Don't let them leave. Don't let them move any papers. When we pulled up to the house, a police car sat in the driveway. I didn't call them, I said, confused. Kenneth did. Jasmine met us at the door. After Helen tried to burn the evidence, inside, the dining room had become a war zone. Papers scattered everywhere, Helen restrained in a chair by a female officer, mascara streaking down her face. Kenneth sat with his head in his hands, while another officer took his statement. You ungrateful bitch, Helen screamed when she saw me. After everything we did for you. Mrs. Montgomery, the officer warned, please stay calm. She destroyed our family, Helen thrashed in the chair. We gave her everything. You gave her nothing. Jasmine stepped forward. You took everything. Natalia huddled in a corner, frantically typing on her phone. The male officer noticed. Miss, please surrender your device. We have reason to believe you're attempting to move funds. Too late. Brian appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. The offshore account's already frozen. Interpol's involved now. Interpol? Natalia's phone clattered to the floor. Mum, you said nobody would find out. Nobody was supposed to. Helen's voice cracked. Denise was supposed to be too busy, too trusting, too stupid. I finished for her. Sorry to disappoint. Damien stood by the fireplace, staring at the half-burned papers the officers had salvaged. Dad, did you know about all of it? Kenneth looked up, suddenly aged a decade. I knew about the initial transfers, not the loans, not Natalia's account, not... He gestured helplessly at the chaos around us. Sign the confessions. Olive placed fresh copies on the table. It's your last chance to avoid criminal charges. You can't prove anything, Helen spat. It's our word against... Actually, the female officer interrupted, with these documents and recorded conversations, we can prove quite a lot. One by one they signed. Kenneth first, hand shaking. Natalia next, tears splashing the paper. Jasmine had already signed her statement at the credit union. Damien hesitated, pen hovering. Think carefully, I told him. Your next signature is either on that confession or on arrest papers. I really did love you, he whispered, signing. No, I replied. You really didn't. Helen remained defiant. I won't sign anything. This ungrateful girl comes into our family, takes my son, focuses on her career instead of giving us grandchildren, and now, Mrs. Montgomery, the male officer stepped forward, we have enough evidence to arrest you right now for fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Your choice. She signed. The beach house sells first, I stated flatly, then everything else. Every penny paid back. Where are we supposed to live? Natalia whimpered. Should have thought about that before stealing from your own family fund, Jasmine remarked. The officers began gathering evidence, taking statements. I watched as the perfect family facade crumbled completely. I've contacted the credit union board, Brian told me quietly. They're pressing separate charges against Helen and Jasmine. The country club committee wants a statement, Olive added. Apparently, Helen's been running similar schemes there. Let them handle it. I turned away from the scene. I'm done here. Denise, wait! Damien called after me. What about us, our home, our marriage? I faced my husband one last time. Our marriage died the first time you forged my signature. Our home was built on lies. And us. I pulled off my wedding ring. There is no us. There never really was. But I can change. We can start over. No, Damien, you can start over in a smaller house with a regular job, without access to my money. I dropped the ring on the table. Consider it a divorce gift. Helen started screaming again as I walked out. Natalia was crying about prison. Kenneth was asking about lawyers. But for the first time in days, I felt at peace. Olive followed me to the car. You okay? No, I admitted, but I will be. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Brian. Final tally, $238,456 stolen. All accounts frozen. Recovery process starting tomorrow. Want to get drunk and burn wedding photos? Olive offered. I started the car, watching in the rearview mirror as the officers led Helen out in handcuffs. God, yes. The perfect family was perfect no more. But maybe that was exactly how it should be. Final sale price, $800,000. The realtor handed me the beach house closing documents. Quite a profit, considering the market. Karma's profitable these days, Olive remarked beside me. We watched the new owners drive away, their moving truck following close behind. My phone buzzed. A news alert about Helen's sentencing. 8 years for fraud and conspiracy. Kenneth got 5, with possibility of early release. Natalia took a plea deal, trading information about other family schemes for a lighter sentence. Jasmine lost her job but avoided jail by cooperating fully. And Damien? He signed the divorce papers without contest, disappeared to another state, and last I heard, was working as a bank teller. Irony's funny that way. Ms. Montgomery? The bank manager approached with another stack of papers. The funds have been transferred to the restitution account. Would you like to review the distribution schedule? Send it to my lawyer. I nodded toward Olive. She'll handle the details. Walking out of the bank, I felt lighter. The money was back where it belonged, with interest. The perfect family's perfect facade had crumbled completely. Justice, as they say, had been served. Ready for your speech? Olive asked as we drove to my office. I smoothed my blazer. As ready as I'll ever be. The conference room was packed. Every financial controller and executive in the company waited to hear about my new fraud prevention initiative. Brian stood at the back, giving me a thumbs up. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "Today, we're launching a program I wish had existed years ago, one that might have saved me from losing $200,000 to my own family." The room went silent. "We're calling it the Trust But Verify Protocol, because sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we should trust the least." Phones came out recording. This wasn't just another corporate presentation. This was a warning, a lesson, a survival guide. My husband forged my signature. My mother-in-law orchestrated elaborate schemes. My sister-in-law stole from the stolen money. And I'm here to make sure it never happens to anyone else. After the presentation, my boss pulled me aside. "The board wants to fast-track you to CFO. Your story, this initiative, it's exactly what the company needs." I thought about Helen's words at my promotion party, about family success, about how desperately she'd wanted to control my career, my money, my life. "I accept," I said, "but I have one condition." "Name it." "The Trust But Verify Protocol goes company-wide. No exceptions." That evening, cleaning out my home office, I found an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of expensive stationery. Helen's perfect handwriting instantly recognizable. "You think you've won. You think you've destroyed us. But family is forever, dear. And revenge works both ways. Sleep well." I should have been scared, should have called the police. Instead, I laughed. The doorbell rang. Olive stood there with wine and takeout. Behind her, Brian juggled his laptop and a stack of files. "Found 3 more accounts," he announced, settling at my kitchen table. "Hidden under shell companies. Want to freeze them too?" "Already done," Olive smirked. "Called in a few favours at the DA's office. Helen's sentence just got longer." I handed them Helen's note. They read it together, exchanging glances. "Should we be worried?" Brian asked. "About what?" I poured the wine. "A prison threat from a woman who couldn't even hide her fraud properly? Who trusted her daughter with stolen money? Who thought I was too stupid to notice my own bank accounts being drained?" "Fair point." Olive raised her glass. "To karma." "To karma," we echoed. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Mum says, you'll regret this. Family protects family." Natalia, still trying to play tough from her minimum security cell. I typed back, "Funny? That's exactly what I did. Protected myself from family." Then I blocked the number, just like I'd blocked Damien's, Helen's, Kenneth's, and every other Montgomery who thought they could threaten or guilt me into silence. "You know," Brian said, reviewing the files, "with all the recovered money plus interest, you're actually better off now than before. It was never about the money." I took another sip of wine. "It was about trust, about truth, about learning that sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you marry into." Olive raised her glass again. "To chosen family." Outside, a car alarm went off. Probably Natalia's flying monkeys trying to scare me. Let them try. I had security cameras, a restraining order, and most importantly, nothing left to steal. To chosen family, I agreed, and to never letting anyone else write your story for you. The perfect family was gone, but in its place, something real had grown. Something honest. Something true. And that was worth every penny they tried to steal.
The room was filled with an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Mark, my husband of 30 years, sat across from me, his eyes glued to the TV, ignoring my presence as usual. I sat there, lost in my thoughts, feeling the weight of years of unspoken grievances and suppressed anger. I had reached my limit. "Did you finish moving?" Mark's voice, tinged with his usual condescension, pierced the silence. I didn't look at him as I replied, "I'm leaving, Mark." My voice was calm, but inside a storm was raging. Mark scoffed, "Oh, really? And where will you go, Anna? You can't survive without me." His words stung, but they also fueled my resolve. For too long I had endured his dismissive attitude and his mother's incessant meddling. It was time to reclaim my life. "I'll manage," I said, standing up. I felt empowered despite the fear and uncertainty that lay ahead. His mother, who had been living with us for the past year, walked in, her eyes narrowing as she saw my packed bags. "Running away, are we?" she sneered. "I knew you didn't have the spine to handle this family." Ignoring her, I grabbed my bags and headed towards the door. Mark didn't move to stop me. Instead, he called out, "You'll be back. You need us." As I stepped out of the house, I felt a sense of liberation. The cool evening breeze felt like a balm to my suffocated soul. I didn't know where I was going, but for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. For 30 years, I had played the dutiful wife to Mark, a man who saw me more as a convenience than a partner. Our son Alex was the only light in my life, but even he couldn't fill the growing void in my heart. Mark's mother, with her constant criticisms and manipulations, only added to the toxicity of our home. I found a small apartment, modest but peaceful. It was my sanctuary, a place where I could breathe and think without judgment. In the following days, I ignored the barrage of calls and messages from Mark and his mother. They fluctuated between pleading and threats, but I was done listening. My coworkers at the library, where I had worked part-time for years, were supportive. They had seen the changes in me, the gradual loss of my spirit. Now, they witnessed my rebirth. One evening, as I was settling into my new routine, my phone rang. It was Alex. "Mom, are you okay?" His voice was laced with concern. "I am, Alex. Better than I've been in years," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm proud of you, Mom. Dad and Grandma, they're not taking it well. Dad's been drinking, and Grandma won't stop talking about how you've abandoned them." A pang of guilt hit me, but I pushed it away. "They'll manage, Alex. They need to learn to respect others." Alex was silent for a moment. "I'm glad you're finally thinking about yourself, Mom. Let me know if you need anything." As I hung up the phone, I realized this was just the beginning. Mark and his mother had underestimated me for years. It was time to show them that I was no longer the woman they thought they could control. My journey of self-discovery and revenge had just begun. In my small apartment, surrounded by the few belongings I had taken with me, I reflected on the past 30 years with Mark. Our marriage, once filled with promise, had slowly disintegrated into a shadow of what it could have been. It all started blissfully. Mark was charming and attentive, and we were young, full of dreams. But as the years passed, the charm faded, revealing a man more interested in his own needs than those of his family. When Alex was born, I thought it would bring us closer, but it only highlighted our differences. Mark's idea of parenting was providing financially, leaving the emotional nurturing to me. His mother, Eleanor, always hovered in the background, her criticism of my parenting a constant drone. "Anna, you're coddling the boy too much," Eleanor would say. "Mark never needed all this fuss." I endured her jibes, focusing on Alex, who grew up to be a thoughtful and independent young man, despite the tension at home. The turning point came when Eleanor moved in with us. Mark didn't even discuss it with me. I just came home one day to find her bags in the hallway. "My house is too lonely," she had said, a manipulative glint in her eye. Living with Eleanor was suffocating. She criticized everything from my cooking to the way I dressed. "Mark could have done so much better," she would often say within my earshot. But what truly broke me was discovering Mark's betrayal. I stumbled upon bank statements one day, revealing large withdrawals from our joint account, money used to fund Eleanor's gambling habit and Mark's secret indulgences. Confronting them led to heated arguments, with Mark always siding with his mother. "She's my mother, Anna. She needs this to cope with her loneliness," he would argue, dismissive of my concerns. The final straw came when I overheard a conversation between them, plotting to take control of the finances completely, reducing me to nothing but an occupant in their house. I knew then that I couldn't live in that shadow any longer. The day I left, I promised myself that they would one day understand the pain they had caused. My plan was simple yet effective. I would hit them where it hurt the most, their pride and their finances. I started by legally separating our finances, a move that shocked Mark. "What do you think you're doing?" he had yelled over the phone. "Protecting myself, something I should have done years ago," I replied, my voice calm but firm. Eleanor's reaction was even more dramatic. "You ungrateful wretch! After everything we've done for you," she screeched when she found out. But I was unmoved. The years of submission were over. I was playing by my own rules now, and this was just the beginning of their karma. The weeks following my financial independence were tumultuous. Mark and Eleanor were furious, their true natures fully exposed in their anger. I received countless calls, each more venomous than the last. "You think you're clever, Anna?" Mark hissed during one call. "You're nothing without me. You'll come crawling back." "I won't, Mark. I'm done being your puppet," I replied, my newfound strength bolstering my words. Eleanor was even more vitriolic. "You'll regret this, Anna. You've ruined our family." "There was no family to ruin, Eleanor. It was an illusion," I shot back. Despite their threats, I felt liberated. The fear that once controlled me had evaporated, replaced by a resolute desire for justice. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. I started by reaching out to old friends and acquaintances, sharing my story. The truth about Mark and Eleanor's manipulations and financial deceit quickly spread, tarnishing their reputations. Mark, who prided himself on his social standing, was appalled. "How could you do this to me?" he demanded during a rare face-to-face encounter. "You did this to yourself," I replied calmly. "I'm just shedding light on it." Eleanor, faced with the community's judgment, was equally distraught. "You've turned everyone against us. This is war, Anna." But I was no longer intimidated by her. "No, Eleanor, this is justice." I watched as their world crumbled. Mark's friends began to distance themselves, wary of his tarnished image. Eleanor's social circle, once a source of her pride, dwindled as the truth about her gambling and manipulation spread. But I didn't stop there. I knew their financial instability was their weakest point. With the help of a lawyer, I began the process of claiming my share of our joint assets, ensuring that Eleanor's gambling debts were exposed and Mark's mismanagement of our finances was brought to light. The court proceedings were grueling, but I stood my ground. Mark and Eleanor's attempts to discredit me fell flat, their lies and deceit no match for the truth. As the judge ruled in my favor, granting me a significant portion of our assets, I saw the defeat in Mark and Eleanor's eyes. It was more than just a legal victory. It was a moral one. "You've destroyed us, Anna," Mark said, a shadow of his former arrogant self. "No, Mark, you destroyed us long ago. I'm just picking up the pieces," I replied. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I looked forward to the future, free from the chains of my past. Mark and Eleanor's downfall was the first step in my journey of reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of the court ruling was a whirlwind. With my rightful share of the assets, I began building a life free from Mark and Eleanor's shadow. Their reactions, however, were a mixture of disbelief and fury. "You can't do this to us, Anna," Mark exclaimed over the phone one evening, his voice laced with desperation. "I've done nothing but take back what's mine," I replied firmly. "You should have thought about the consequences before you betrayed me." Eleanor's response was more underhanded. She tried to rally family members against me, painting herself as a victim. But her attempts were futile. The truth about her had spread too far. "Anna, you're tearing this family apart," she accused during a chance encounter at the grocery store. "This family was broken long before I left," I countered, not giving her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I relished the freedom of living on my own terms. I changed my phone number, cutting off their direct line of harassment. I also started volunteering at a local shelter, finding solace in helping others who had faced similar struggles. But my quest for justice wasn't over. I learned that Eleanor was planning to contest the court's decision, still clinging to the hope of reclaiming the money for her gambling habits. "You won't get away with this, Anna. I'll make sure of it," she threatened in a message relayed through a relative. In response, I fortified my legal defenses, prepared to counter any move she made. I was no longer the woman who shied away from confrontation. I was a fighter, standing up for what was rightfully mine. Mark, meanwhile, was crumbling under the pressure. His once pristine image was now tarnished, and his career suffered as a result. The friends and connections he valued so much were now distancing themselves, unwilling to associate with a man caught in scandal. "You've ruined me, Anna," he lamented during a rare moment of reflection. "You ruined yourself, Mark. I just exposed the truth," I replied. As the weeks turned into months, I watched as their once secure world disintegrated. Eleanor's attempt to contest the court's decision failed miserably, leaving her financially and socially bankrupt. Mark's career continued its downward spiral, his reputation irreparably damaged. But despite their downfall, I felt no joy in their suffering. It was a necessary step in my journey, but it was not the end. I had reclaimed my independence and my dignity, but I was still healing from years of neglect and emotional abuse. As I continued to rebuild my life, I focused on finding peace and happiness within myself. I had emerged from the shadows of my past, stronger and more resilient. My story was not one of revenge, but of emancipation, a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Several months had passed since the court's decision, and the ripples of my actions were still felt. Mark and Eleanor, now estranged from most of their acquaintances, were living a shadow of their former lives. One day, I received an unexpected visit from Alex. He looked troubled, his usually bright eyes clouded with concern. "Mom, I just came from seeing Dad and Grandma," he began, his voice heavy. They're not doing well." I offered him a seat and a warm cup of tea. "Tell me what happened, Alex." He sighed deeply before continuing. "Dad's been let go from his job, his drinking, it's gotten worse. And Grandma, she's lost everything to gambling. They're selling the house." I listened, my heart aching for Alex. Despite everything, they were still his family. "Mom, did we go too far?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Alex, we stood up for what's right. They made their choices," I replied, my voice tinged with sadness. The news of their misfortune didn't bring me joy. Instead, it was a somber reminder of the consequences of a life lived without integrity and respect for others. The following weeks were filled with whispers and rumors. Mark and Eleanor's house, once a symbol of their success, was now on the market. Their fall from grace was complete. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Mark had tried to find work, but his reputation preceded him. Eleanor, meanwhile, had become a pariah in her social circles, her gambling addiction now public knowledge. One evening, while I was out for a walk, I saw Mark. He was a shadow of the man he once was, his posture slumped, his eyes hollow. Our paths crossed, and for a moment we stood there in silence. "Anna, he began, his voice cracking. "There's nothing to say, Mark," I interrupted. "You chose your path." He nodded slowly, a resigned look in his eyes. "I never thought it would come to this," he murmured. As I walked away, leaving Mark behind, I felt a sense of closure. The man who had once held so much power over me was now just a stranger with a broken past. Eleanor, too, faded into obscurity. Her once lively demeanor was now subdued, the realities of her actions finally catching up to her. As the chapter of Mark and Eleanor closed, I realized that my journey was about more than revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and finding peace. I had stood up to my oppressors, not for vengeance, but for justice and self-respect. The experience had taught me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. As I continued to build my new life, I did so with a newfound strength and a heart ready to embrace the future. Months turned into a year since the upheaval of my life began. In this time, my journey of self-reinvention continued, with each day bringing new strengths and realizations. The downfall of Mark and Eleanor was not my endgame. It was merely a byproduct of my pursuit for justice and respect. One crisp autumn afternoon, I sat in my cozy living room, the warm sunlight streaming through the window, reflecting on the changes. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Alex. "Mom, I wanted to tell you something," Alex said, his voice brimming with excitement. "Sarah and I are getting married, and we'd love for you to help us with the planning." Joy surged through me. "That's wonderful news, Alex. Of course I'd love to help." Our conversation was filled with laughter and plans for the future, a stark contrast to the calls filled with distress and despair from the past. A few days later, while out for my regular walk, I encountered Eleanor. She seemed smaller, diminished somehow. Our eyes met, and there was a brief flicker of something, regret perhaps, or realization in hers. "Anna," she began, her voice quivering, I'm sorry." The apology, unexpected and late, caught me off guard. "Eleanor, your actions brought you here. I hope you find some peace." As I walked away, leaving Eleanor standing alone, I realized the full extent of my transformation. I no longer harbored anger or resentment. I had moved beyond the need for revenge. The wedding planning with Alex and Sarah was a joyful affair. It was during these moments, surrounded by love and hope, that I truly appreciated the beauty of moving forward. The day of the wedding arrived, a beautiful ceremony filled with laughter and tears of joy. Watching Alex and Sarah, so full of love and promise, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Despite the challenges, we had emerged stronger. In my toast, I said, "Life brings many challenges, but it's how we face them that defines us." Today, we celebrate love, resilience, and new beginnings. As the evening drew to a close, I looked around at the happy faces, feeling content. I had not only survived, I had thrived. In the years that followed, Mark and Eleanor remained distant memories. I heard through the grapevine that they had moved away, each carrying their own burdens. My life, once overshadowed by their presence, was now my own. I found fulfillment in my work, joy in my role as a mother and friend, and peace in my solitary moments. As I sat in my garden one sunny afternoon watching the flowers bloom, I realized this was what true freedom felt like. My journey had been long and fraught with obstacles, but it led me to a place of contentment and strength. The end of my marriage was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I was the author of my own life, and in this new chapter I found happiness, peace, and a sense of self that no one could ever take away.